Hello and welcome to Our Game here. Myself, Shane Stapleton, Michael Verney with me as ever, and Paul Flaherty from What's the Score, former Galway hurler, All-Ireland medal in the back pocket from 2017. Paul Flaherty. So What's the Score, of course, an app where you can download and keep on top of all the live scores going on at the weekend. As I said, we are brought to you by Micro Sports, so keep an eye out on the website there and there might be an old helmet for Christmas or something like that in it. We'll start off with yourself, Michael. Looking forward to another big weekend of GA both codes.
Yeah, loads to look forward to again this weekend, Shane. Obviously, Paul has fairly intimate knowledge, I'm sure, the Galway final, which is a really interesting game. With Thomas is going for 4 in a row. I think even with all the great teams that won Galway championships down through the years, and you're thinking of Athenry and Sarsfield's Portumna, I don't think any of them actually did 4 in a row throughout that time. So it's something special that they're going for this weekend, and it's going to be one of many intriguing games. And even down the lower tiers, there's so many intermediate and junior provincial club games over the weekend. It's hard to keep your eyes on everything, but we'll do our best to keep you well informed on what's going on.
Yeah, we have an absolutely stacked show today, as well as Paul joining us. Myself and Michael are always here. We've got Stephen Poacher, who's going to come on and talk about some of the Ulster club action. We've got Vincent O'Toole from the 42, who's going to join us. And Nisha Waldron is going to do Pick the Lock with us later on in the show, which is always great fun. We'll start off with you, Paul. Abby Knock, my man, of course. Can you talk to us about Clarenbridge and St. Thomas's? And at this stage, is there Stockholm fever with St. Thomas's? They're going for that 4 in a row, and nobody can seem to beat them.
Yeah, thanks very much, lads, for having me on. It's a pleasure. Yeah, like St. Thomas's, they've been everyone's been kind of saying at the start of the year, like it's kind of theirs to lose. But at the start, like there was a lot of they were in the group of death, and they were in with Lee Mellows, Capitagal, and Clynmore. So they had a very tough start to their championship, and they won all the 3 of them, and they got straight through to the quarter final. And then they had to play Kilkenarn, who were only up from intermediate, and then they played Gort the last day. Now, Gort had there was about a 3-week delay there with the whole COVID and everything, so they kind of found it hard. They lost like 4-20 to 9 points, but Thomas's they're really going. They've got so much experience in that, just all over the pitch, so they're a real credit. And from such a small village, they're doing exceptionally well. They're just born leaders all through the team. So
yeah. You would have, Paul, you would have shared a dressing room with the likes of Davy Burke, Conor Cooney, and other players from St. Thomas's there in Galway. Can you just talk to me about the leader that is Davy Burke? Because obviously he led the county to that All-Ireland title, first one in 29 years, just 4 years ago.
Yeah, it seems like a lifetime ago, so it does now. But yeah, like I was there in 2015, and obviously he was there as well, and he was a real leader. Straight away when I went into the panel, and he just in the few years he was there, he'd set the standard after every training, like Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday morning, Sunday morning, whenever we're training, he'd always be like, get us all in a group after a training, and he'd just be like, we've a good week done here now. It's time to progress onto the second week in the standards. He'd always be pushing lads. He'd individually call out people as well, no shame in that. And that's what some people needed, to really get behind them and to improve their game. So he was a born leader, and you can see across Thomas's, they like Dara Burke, Shane Cooney, even Conor Cooney, they're just kind of big, broad lads that are just. They don't care who's in front of them. They'll push them out of the way. So that's kind of the Thomas's ego down there, I suppose.
Michael, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, no, Davy, I would know Davy came into our Fitzgibbon panel, I think, when he was a first year in UL, and you just knew straight away. Now, I wouldn't have necessarily seen the leadership side of things like Paul would have, but just straight away you would have seen just how good of a ball player he was. I don't think I've ever seen, when he has any sort of time in the ball, he gives the most sympathetic ball into the forward you will ever see. It nearly always favours the forward. It's nearly always a lovely delivery. Like him, and when Joe Canning was in full forward, and even when he was at centre forward as well, the link play between the two of them, and Davy often did a lot of the unseen work. I suppose in 15, 16 and 17 and even in 18, he'd massive displays in big games. I think he was an all-star in the first 3 of those years. He was probably Galway's best player from my memory in the 2018 final when they were beaten as well. Interestingly, the frustrating year with Galway this year, I'd say he was looking really good against Limerick in the league, picked up a hamstring injury, was kind of chased himself a bit thereafter. It's going to be interesting probably too when Thomas's campaign finishes up, whether that's Sunday evening or whether it's maybe February 13th after an All-Ireland final, to see what he's going to be doing as regards his Galway career. But he's one of many leaders in that Thomas's team. And you look through it, like you have, the likes of James Regan as well, guys that have been in around Galway squads. Éanna Burke has been in around Galway squads. You have Shane Cooney that's there now. You have Conor Cooney that's there now as well, and several more. There is an awful lot of talent all over the pitch. And from a Clarenbridge point of view, again, when you're trying to cause an upset, so many things will have to go right for them. So many matchups will have to be on the money. And I'm sure there's a lot of thought put into it from a Clarenbridge point of view of how they're going to go about stopping the Thomas's juggernaut. But from people who have been at the recent Thomas's games, like a couple of people that were at the semi-final against Gort, and the scoreline would suggest that Thomas's are in the rudest health that they've ever been and that they've evolved again. The only thing I'd say on that is that their knockout games in recent years, quarterfinals and semi-finals and finals, there was a lot of time it was only a score that they were winning by. This year, in the quarterfinal and semi-final, they've been really impressive wins. So from a Clarenbridge point of view, you might be thinking maybe that they haven't been, really properly tested in knockout hurling yet. And Clarenbridge are going to have to bring something different to the table on Sunday. And that's an interesting game. I'm down in Salt Hill. I'm going to have to leave at all hours, I'd say, to get from here, to get down there, because it's a fair old trek. I'd prefer, to be honest with you, from a Galway hurling point of view, if it was in Athenry or if it was in Ballinasloe. But I suppose that's just the way it is.
Paul, I'm looking through the Clarenbridge forward line. They've been lively, Mark Kennedy, Gavin Lee, Keane Salmon, Niall Armstrong, Sean Kilduff, and then you have TJ Brennan and Ian O'Brien anchoring the defence. And, in their 6 games to date, they've only conceded 14.5 points per game. I read that in the Galway Advertiser. So the question I want to ask you is, how do Clarenbridge go about upsetting the apple cart here and denying St. Thomas's that 4 in a row?
Yeah, it's a tough question, and I'm sure the manager, I think it's Jarlath Nyland there, he's Evan Nyland's father, he'll be doing the exact same thing. But I think no one has kind of raised them all year. Let's say they're the first team, I think, to get into a final from Senior B. So let's say in the Galway, there's 12 teams in Senior A and 12 teams in Senior B. So they're the first ones to kind of go from the real bottom. Well, they weren't really a Senior B side, but they got all the way to the final. So they'll just have to I'd say, forget Thomas's and just concentrate on themselves. They just got to use what they've been doing really well, like as you said, Keane Salmon, Mark Kennedy, get all these lads on the ball. Like Evan Nyland is they've been saying for years, that he's a bit too small for the inter-county, but he came on this year, he was at 11, and he's just sitting in the pocket, and he's such a great striker, the ball left and right, and he's prolific free taker. So Thomas's, if Clarenbridge can win, 10 to 12 frees, you'd be saying 90% of them would be going over. So I think they just got to stay in it for as long as they can, keep doing what they're doing, and probably just, it's hard to say, but try and not worry about St. Thomas's, just concentrate in their own game, because Thomas's are so experienced. They're going for 4 in a row. They're big lads. So they'd have to be moving the ball fast and just concentrate in their own game. That's what I'd say.
Just on that chain as well, they're going to have to get in Thomas's faces. They're going to have to do what O'Loughlin's did to Ballyhale particularly for the first 40 minutes in that Kilkenny final. Now, Ballyhale had the class to overturn a game that looked like it was going against them, but they're just going to really have to ruffle their feathers. They're going to have to bring an intensity to it. They're going to have to hit Thomas's with something that they haven't been hit with probably since the group stages, really. And there's probably the guts of 2 months since they played a group game, and as Paul said, they came through an awful group, came through it with flying colours, but they're probably not road tested in the last probably 6 to 8 weeks, and even with COVID delays and things like that as well. So Clarenbridge are just going to have to play with a bit of abandon. In fairness, I think the last 2 times they've been to county finals, they've won them. In 2001, they ended up getting all the way to the club final, beaten by Burr down in Thurles, and in 2010 they ended up winning the All-Ireland club title. So they have a great record of making hay when they actually get to that occasion. So they'll be hoping that they're just going to have to meet fire with fire and throw something at Thomas's that hasn't been thrown at them yet this year.
It cut you up to bring up Burr there, didn't it?
Any chance, Shane, I've heard about Kula, God only knows how many times. Any chance you get to bring it up, I'll bring it up. A very funny story about that, actually. was sitting in Cheltenham there a couple of years ago. We were having dinner, and John McIntyre was there, and he was saying about when he was over Clarenbridge. He actually managed Clarenbridge to that All-Ireland club final, and he said that game was the first day. The Burr game was the first of the double header that day, so there was no national anthem. So John said, Jesus, like, we were expecting a national anthem, he said, and like before we knew what it hit us, Declan Pilkin had the ball in the net after 10 seconds. And I just said, Jesus, yeah, John. I said, Jesus, yeah. Suppose you'd have to place the blame on the manager. And he says, yeah. And then he just turned and looked at me like this, and he didn't know what to say. But that's just a little interesting aside. Obviously, John is a Tipperary man by his native Tipperary man, but a massive Galway man too, and has been involved with plenty of clubs there. But really interesting to see if their history would suggest that they're going to bring a performance on final day. Their previous history. So if they bring fire with Thomas's and throw something, big at them, it's going to be interesting to see how it goes.
Well, seeing as you brought up Burr, I'll bring up Tralee beating St. Thomas's in the All-Ireland semi-final there at the start of 2020. And, look at that forward line. Conor Cooney, James Regan, I know Fintan Burke will probably be in the back line. Shane Cooney will be centre-back. Davy Burke, Éanna Burke, Oisín Flannery. They're serious. Like, they've averaged 29 points a game so far, Paul. Yeah. Is that likely to continue? Is it going to be a high-scoring final?
Well, as Michael said, like Sawtill, you just don't know what's going to happen down there. There could be a gale force wind, it could be a dry day.
There'll definitely be a gale force wind, Paul. I can guarantee you that.
It'll be coming in from Blackrock there, yeah, definitely. Yeah, there'll be people jumping off the tower and everything. So it's just hard to see how Clanbridge are going to do it. Like as he said, there's such talent. The spine of the team is just so experienced. And then when you've got Kenneth Burke, let's say, that's over them, he's been there for the last few years, obviously related to the lads. Kevin Lally, who was over them the last 3 years, he's gone in with the Galway setup there. So like it's very hard to see how these season campaigners will be stopped. As you said, Oisín Flannery, Conor Cooney, Éanna Burke is at full forward there. He's getting goals and points there. They're kind of isolating them space inside, and it's the delivery then from Bernard Burke, James Regan. They're just so experienced. So it's very hard to see. But if there is a gale force wind, Evan Island gets a lot of frees from everywhere. So it could be a game of two halves.
Just on that chain as well, the complacency thing, even though they're going for 4 in a row, I don't see Thomas as being complacent, because they're, this is essentially an All-Ireland quarter-final for them. Do you know what I mean? And they want to get back to that stage. They want to, you brought up the Borris game. I'm sure that's something that a wrong that they'd like to right and get back to a final again, where apart from the 13 final against Kilcormac, they haven't really done themselves probably justice, or they would feel at that stage. So I can't see them being too complacent, and there's too many season campaigners there to be taking this challenge lightly as well.
Yeah, and I mean, everyone was last year was talking about Turlough-Moore coming, and St. Thomas has had the answer. This year, everyone was talking about Clarenbridge are the next team. They're winning minors to bait the band. They've got a Féile under their belt as well. And Jerry Brown says, who do the winners of the Galway final play in the All-Ireland semi-final? I believe it's the Ulster champions, because I'm fairly sure it's Leinster against Munster in the semi-final. So I think we're all going for St. Thomas's here to get over the line. But Paul, just another one. There's a rumour of Micheál Donoghue and the Killadangan job in North Tipperary. I'm sure people are aware of them. They were the Tip champions last year. So obviously it's just a rumour at this stage, so there's probably no point in asking you, do you think he'll go? But the question is, having been in a dressing room with him, obviously with Coola, we played you in a challenge match a couple of years ago, and you reminded me that my hurley went a bit loose on you at one stage.
Won't be like you.
But can you tell me, Paul, what's he like in a dressing room? What does he bring to it? Professionalism? Like, is he a fired up character? Can you talk to us about it?
Yeah, it's an interesting appointment, and it would be very good for Killadangan. I think it suits him. But he's very calm and collective. Like he won't be getting the hurl, banging the table. There in the Sunday game, like he even talks like that's where the standards come from. Like, and he'd be just like, you got to push yourselves. He'd be very calm, but maybe on a one-on-one basis, and I got it one time, he might throw a few dark words at you, but overall, like as a
what
character,
did you do? What did you do?
What didn't I do? Is probably what happened. But I probably didn't pull back when you pulled against me in the challenge match in Abbottstown. Yeah, no, he's very calm, collective, very smart guy as well. Like he'll make changes. He'll foresee the game game, like, you know, in a different perspective from everyone else. He brought in Eamon O'Shea as well. I remember in Sawtill they had a training match and Eamon O'Shea came in, like, you know, he might bring in characters like that into the back room with Killadang in there. So he's very methodical. Very won't be getting too mad, but yeah, he'd be very, very professional, and he kind of left Franny Ford and Noel Larkin to the training, and he kind of did the man management and the preparation, making sure everyone was in tune for the matches.
I tell you what, if Eamon O'Shea is brought in, the Clock Jordan boys will be going absolutely ape. I can tell you that. But just a quick one for you, Paul. Do you see it, like, it didn't happen this year, and it was maybe touted that it could happen, that Meall would return as Galway manager? Is that something that you see is only like a matter of time before that does happen again? It does look like, while you obviously did get to the promised land, you got where you wanted it to. Is there still a sense of unfinished business there somewhat?
Yeah, I think definitely among the players, like the players, and I know, you know, a lot of them there, they were kind of looking, you know, when the previous manager there from can't think of his name, Shane O'Neill. I was about to say Shane Ryan, yeah, Shane O'Neill. When he left, like, they were kind of Michael Donoghue. It was the position was there if he wanted it. You know, he got us to the promised land. Why wouldn't you give it back to him? Like, you know, so it's hard to know why he didn't get it, you know, but obviously the Galway County Board went about it and they did a good job in getting Henry Shefflin in the door. I was listening to Richie Power there during the week, and he said the guy kind of pulled the rabbit out of the hat there. I think you talked to yourself, Michael, there. So I think they're a bit disappointed that they didn't hold on to Henry for a while, but he'll be a good appointment for us. But after Henry's appointment, would Donoghue come back in? I'd say the door will always be open for him. You know, it's the same as like Cyril Farrell there when years ago I'd said that they give the job to him after he got us to the promised land in the 80s there. So yeah, the door will always be open for Donoghue, I'd say.
Were you shocked by the Henry Shefflin appointment, Paul?
I was, yeah. But it
in a good way.
In a good way, yeah. I wasn't going for myself or anything, like, you know. But yeah, everyone that in Galway, from a hurling perspective, we're all excited. We're hoping to have maybe Henry 2022 up here on a car. Yeah, back there, yeah, Henry 2022. So I'd say a lot of people are very optimistic. He'll bring something fresh. I think he went to the semi-final or the quarterfinal or semi-final in Kinney Park, and when he walked into the stand, he got a standing ovation, and apparently
really?
he went red and he didn't know what to do, and he walked out after 10 minutes, and he went back up to the kind of the side wall because he doesn't want. He's not that kind of person. He doesn't want the attention, I'd say. He just wants to do his Galway job, make sure that like they're playing Kilkenny first, you know, so that'll be a huge battle there. So everyone in Galway is very optimistic, and I think he'll bring fresh blood and kind of new ideas into the Galway setup.
Paul, having been around Joe Canning throughout his Galway career, and when you were there for a couple of years, do you think that door is closed now, or what? Like, what do you think will happen with Henry? Will there be a conversation? Can he be coaxed back, do you think?
I don't think he will, to be honest. I know I was listening to someone that'd be like, would Henry might ring him to kind of come into the back room and be kind of maybe a coach or kind of you know, just help out with stats or something like that, or just be a frame around the dressing room, you know, with his experience and everything. That might be more realistic, but I think once he closes the door on something, I think it's closed. He would have thought about it, like, you know, he's got a lot of knocks. You know, he's been hurt. He was Galway's main man there for so many years. I think it's just he's going to leave it up to the Conor Whelans, Brian Cannon, Cathal Manions, you know, all these lads. Like they've got loads of experience. They're well able to carry the can. I think Galway have been unlucky in the last few years. Really, they're probably the second team, best team to Limerick. There, you know, they were close enough there when it was 27 points, 24, not so long ago. So yeah, I think the door is closed in terms of playing, but it would be nice to see him kind of in the back room set up there with Henry and the lads.
Yeah, Mark Corcoran wondering, will Greg Kennedy be involved with Henry Shefflin's setup? Somehow, I don't think so. But can I say on behalf of every Tipperary person, a Kilkenny manager over Galway, really want to see a disastrous 2022. And obviously tongue in cheek. As long as Tip win the All-Ireland, I don't mind who comes second. Right, well, very good to have you on, Paul. Obviously, anyone out there, if you're not aware of it already, the What's the Score app that Paul runs, download, very good for keeping on top of all the score lines. Very, very great coverage on that. So, Paul, thanks very much for joining us, and we'll chat to you again soon.
Thanks, lads. Much appreciated.
Cheers, Paul. Good man.
So that was Paul Flaherty there. Right, we're that's the Galway final. We're obviously thinking St. Thomas's are in a great spot to win that one. What about the Leinster club quarter-final? It was delayed obviously a week because TJ Reid was having his wedding, and Mount Leinster Rangers were good enough to allow that to go back a week. But I suppose most people in the country, Michael, are just thinking this is a case of Ballyhale showing up.
Probably, Shane. To be honest with you, we had Mount Leinster at 10 in our power rankings, and we kind of had to the first power rankings. We probably had to take them out of the second one because we do think that they're going to fall. The game is Saturday, I think, but like they're no mugs either. Jesus, and far from it. Conditions are probably starting to deteriorate a small bit. As you know, I think you were down in Carlow when Mullins beat you a couple of years ago. I know it's maybe a cliche thing. It's not an easy place to go.
Definitely not.
Dr. Cullen Park is not an easy place to go, and I'll refuse to call it by the name people want us to call it by. It's Dr. Cullen Park for me, and it will always be known as Dr. Cullen Park. But like, obviously, Mount Leinster Rangers have plenty of pedigree at provincial level. Have a Leinster title from was it 2013? That 2013 they played the All Ireland final in 2014.
Was it 12 and then they played the final in 13. Oh
no,
you might be right.
13 and played it in 14, I think. Yeah, so like, okay. there's massive pedigree there. You know, the Carlow Championships obviously played a long time ago. That's an interesting one as well. Like, we're talking about the layoff that Rapparees had and the layoff that Ballygunner had. The Carlow final was played nearly before we started doing club shows again. To the best
19th.
Yeah. So they've played a split season in Carlow as well. So I'm sure they've been playing. They've been out on the circuit and playing all the big teams around the country, and will be ready to go. It's still very, very difficult to see an upset being caused here, but I think we're probably downplaying the pedigree of the Rangers, in fairness, and they'll definitely put up a big fight. And their history in Leinster would definitely suggest that, and they definitely won't be pushed around.
Yeah, and I'm just looking through the Mount Leinster team here, the one that played against St. Mullins in the county final, winning 24 points to 16. They had like 17 points in the first half alone, which is serious going and reflects the dominance. But going through the team, some of the very good players there that you'd see, and Diarmuid Byrne, Paul Cody. You see Eddie Byrne scored 4 points. Dennis Murphy, who was obviously brilliant on the frees that year they got to the All-Ireland, he scored, I think, 4 points. Only one of them frees. Chris Nolan got 7. John Nolan got 5. You've Ted Joyce, who came on in that final too. An awful lot of scorers there. But I just wonder, is there enough to trouble Ballyhale? And are they even going to have to play someone in the backs, therefore allowing maybe Richie Reid to be a spare man in the Shamrocks defence? And the ball's never going to really get into them.
Yeah, that's the problem, I think, as well. I think they can't allow. It's obviously going to happen at certain stages, but of all players to leave free, Richie Reid is not the one you want to leave free. So if they are one of the forwards, maybe going to have to pick him up, try and leave someone who's a little less comfortable on the ball free at times, at least. That's not going to happen the whole time. But you're going through names there: John Michael Nolan, Chris Nolan, Dennis Murphy. Like, they're all really tasty forwards. Chris Nolan can absolutely go to town on any defender on a given day. It's just a matter of whether they're going to be able to service him inside, really, and whether they're going to be able to break down. But saying that, like, Joey Holden, as he has done and he will continue to do, will just go about his business effectively there, and will probably shut down one of their better forwards. So it's just when you go down through the fringes of the two teams and you're looking through Ballyhale, it's hard to find weaknesses. And obviously Darren Mullen missed the county final. He's going to be back in tow as well. I just think when you look at it, Owen Cody was, I think, scoreless in the county final and kept really quiet. Colin Fenley as well. Adrian Mullen is only kind of coming back to himself, and only in the second half only started to come back to himself. They've so much score, and they scored 319. There's so much scope for new players to take on the mantle on this provincial run, and you could just see Colin Fenley explode, or Adrian Mullen, and particularly Owen Cody, who, who we both think has kind of boundless potential as well. So it's probably Shamrocks by 6 or 7 for me. They're just so seasoned. They're 5 games away. I would say they will look at it as game 1 of 5 to, a hat-trick of All-Ireland titles. And if anything, having that break in 2020, you might think maybe that, there would have been a chance lost or whatever. They'll look at it as, this is going to be a success or a hat-trick of All-Irelands if we can do it. And if anything, it could be even nearly more impressive, because as time moves on, maybe people will be thinking that their chances are lessening, and Colin Fennelly's getting a year older, TJ's getting a year older, but they look as hungry as ever. And I think that's one of the most impressive things about them.
Yeah, they just have quality all over the pitch, and so many fires that Mount Leinster are going to have to try and put out. We're joined now by Vincent O'Toole of the 42. And Vincent, I'll put it to you like this, right? So 10 years ago, Kilkenny were the sort of team battering everyone left, right and centre, and obviously dominant, winning so many titles. That's no longer happening on the inter-county stage. Is it now happening on the club stage with Ballyhale, where there's basically, they dominate pretty much anywhere?
Yeah, definitely. I suppose there's been no signs of them kind of slipping anyway this year. When you look at how they've done in Kilkenny, I mean, obviously they had that big test in the county final, but like the sustained run of excellence they've had in Kilkenny and obviously Leinster over the last couple of years, it's a pretty special bunch that they're producing in a club that we know have produced, over the years. If you look back to the team of the 80s, obviously, and then kind of the more recently, then, they kind of seem to just kind of come with different teams and able to kind of rehabilitate. Like it's an incredibly impressive achievement. I suppose in a wider sense, though, you'd have to say like both Ballygunner in Waterford and then Munster and St. Thomas so far in Galway have shown pretty strong, and they're obviously teams that have contested against Ballyhale over the last couple of years, but in the All-Ireland series. But at the moment, if you're looking at it in a wider sense with the All-Ireland club race, they haven't put a foot wrong so far. They've kind of blitzed teams in impressive style in some games, Kilkenny, and then obviously when it's put up to them in the final against the Loughlin Gaels. And I mean, ultimately when you look at that forward line, when you look at the kind of long-standing class and experience of, say, TJ and Colin Fennelly, but then the fact that you have probably, I mean, if you're looking at the best forwards under 22, 23 in the country, like you're probably going to be putting on Cody and Adrian Mullen area in the top 3 or 4 for making that list. And it's quite an incredible and probably a scary prospect for the rest of Kilkenny and the rest of Leinster. They all seem to be concentrated within the one club, and they kind of keep producing them,
Yeah, and Michael, like if you look at the county final, 319 to 315, as you mentioned, like Joey Cuddihy getting scores, Adrian Mullen, who Vincent is just talking about there, Brian Butler burst up from the backs to score a goal. Ronan Corcoran was man of the match with 3 points from midfield. Brian Cody scored 2 beside him as well. Like if you're preparing a team against Ballyhale, like what do? Do you go sweeper and almost accept that you're not going to put up a high scoreline, or do you just say, look, we're just going to go man for man and hope for the best here?
Just from chatting to a few people that even have played against them for various teams in Kilkenny, they're adamant that playing a sweeper is an absolute waste of time, that they'll just play around you and they can beat you from out the pitch if they need to. I think the Village went 15-15 against them in that epic semi-final last year, nearly beat them. I think Bennett's Bridge went 15-15 with them when they beat them in that, albeit the league stages of the championship this year. I think you're just going to have to fight fire with them. You're not going to beat them I don't think you're going to beat them in a low-scoring contest. It's probably going to have to be an absolute rip-roaring game that's end-to-end. I said this to you before. You probably have to go after 2 to 3 of their big names, and if you can, even break even on those duels, you're giving yourself a chance. If other lads step up, which they invariably do, be it Ronan Corcoran or Brian Cody or Brian Butler, as you said, there's very little you can do about that. But at least if you go after, we'll say TJ, go after Colin Fennelly, maybe go after Adrian Mullen, which O'Loughlin's did to a fair extent in the county final, they gave themselves a real fighting chance. And it's just up to the gods then whether other lads step up and fill the breach. They did in the county final, and invariably down through the last couple of years they have with Ballyhale. But I think the Rangers, and I think anyone that plays Ballyhale will just have to go toe to toe with them, and just going to have to try and match them for as long as they possibly can.
Yeah, Fintan, I'm nearly thinking that it might be a case of Chris Nolan playing lone man up front in the square, maybe somebody as almost a link man just around the D. And after that, you'll have a few people along the 65 in the attacking half, but more or less everyone else to be back midfield trying to clutter up the half forward line where maybe TJ Reid or whoever Adrian Mullen will be, and try and get those midfielders in and around the battle zone in the middle area as well. Because I think no matter what, we all see that we're all feeling that Ballyhale are going to win this game. But to me, turning it into a bit of a war and forcing Ballyhale to shoot from distance if possible might be the best chance of getting some joy. I'm not sure what you think, Finn.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Like, definitely in terms of kind of compressing the space. I mean, you don't want a situation where they're going to get those overlaps going, or where there's going to be the time and space for TJ to maybe pick a ball into Cody or whatever. Like, I mean, you see it a lot on Underdog. You know, if you concede a couple of goals early on, it's pretty debilitating in terms of kind of hammering your confidence straight away. You might have touched on this already, but I mean, I presume the fact that Conor Phelan's involved with Mount Leinster Rangers, that might, I suppose maybe knowledge is one thing, but as regards how to stop it will be another thing, but that might be just a slight little thing in their favour. Obviously, they're not too far away from each other geographically, so I mean, they're pretty well acquainted with each other's capabilities in that. But you'd have to think in terms of trying to keep it tight, just stay within distance for as long as you can, I mean, to use a comparison, if you look at the All-Ireland Senior Final this year, the way Cork set up and the way those goals were gone early, the game has gone away from them within an early stage in that first half. Whereas if you're looking at Mount Leinster, you can just stay in touch and within distance, maybe up until the second half water break, maybe then you kind of have a puncher's chance, and maybe you can kind of break out then and kind of push on a bit more. But definitely, I think in terms of the confidence kind of being sucked out of you, you definitely want to be kind of making that into, as you say, that middle third kind of into a war zone, and kind of not allow Ballyhale to kind of hit their stride early and get a couple of early goals.
I think Shane, they'll take great heart from St. Mullins in that Leinster final a couple of years ago. And the fact that they've obviously kind of swatted aside St. Mullins in the Carlow Championship in recent years, that's the closest probably a team. You're probably looking at that game and maybe looking at Schlockneil and probably the Village in the last 2 or 3 years that have gotten in any way close to Ballyhale. So I think they'll take great heart from that as well.
And I was just thinking there as we're talking about Mount Leinster, I was down at the Leinster final when they beat Oulart all those years ago, and interviewing Frank Foley after the game. He was the goalkeeper then, and he was just obviously so impassioned and riled up, and rightly so after winning such a massive game, because it was the first Carlow team ever to win a Leinster title. And I was just looking up the quotes there, and he goes, the whole country saw the Leinster final. It was live on TG Carr. We're well able to hurl. It's about time people gave us the respect we deserve. We came in as underdogs, that's fair enough, but a bit more respect was what we needed. It drove us on massively, 100%. You don't like being put down in life. No one likes it. So everyone has challenges in their life, but we work just as hard as Oulart, as what any team works. So, I mean, you can see that, I mean, Fintan, like, obviously people are going to talk down Mount Leinster's chances here, but they'll obviously believe themselves that there is some sort of a chance of getting over the line here, because obviously, like, shocks do happen now and again, but this would be a shock of the century, really, at club level.
Yeah, but I suppose there's at least a bit more kind of credence to the possibility of this happening at club level compared to, was it the round robin stage a couple of years ago where Carlow entertained Kilkenny, and that was obviously a massive occasion in Dr. Cullen Park. But I mean, you have Mount Leinster beating Ballyboden, you have St. Mullins getting to a final. It's just a little bit kind of more, I suppose, kind of evenly balanced in Leinster club, it seems, and maybe in the wider kind of club stage, like, to kind of give them hope. And obviously, we're also playing on, what is it going to be, the 4th of December. It's not exactly kind of high summer where, dry pitch and the kind of conditions to suit the favourites and all that, so if you do kind of bring it into that kind of a war, as well as that, like, this is an experienced club. I mean, like, what you do when you make a breakthrough with a club, what they've done in 2013, I think the respect just goes immediately through the roof, and I think a lot of teams around the country will respect, Mount Leinster and St. Mullins because of what they've done. I mean, like, there's a lot of bigger name clubs from bigger counties haven't reached a provincial final within the last decade, or reached an All-Ireland final, or obviously in Mount Leinster's case managed to win that provincial title. So I don't think there's going to be sense of complacency coming into it from Ballyhale's point of view. I'd like to use the Schlockneil comparison, so-called weaker county, like with the test that they got that day up in Portchester a couple of years ago. You imagine that they're going to be pretty forewarned at this stage.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll jump on to the Leinster Club Intermediate Hurling Championship this weekend. Clodagh Gales of Offaly are against Kildalkey. So Clodagh Gales beat Tullamore in their county final 210 to 112 for Tullamore, and then Kildalkey beat Kiltale 18 points to 2-6. Also in the junior club in Leinster, Boardsmill of Meath are against Shamrocks of Offaly. Clonagale Fontenay, who are only down the road from me, of Dublin against Tara Rocks, and Maynooth of Kildare against Trumra of Laois. Michael, any input on the Offaly teams there and how they might do?
Yeah, well, Clody Gaels were champions, obviously, and that's a tough one. They have a home draw, obviously, but that's a tough game. Kildare won the county final fairly convincingly. Kind of 50-50 game, I view that. Boardsmill and Meath, I don't know much about them, but I know that Bird's intermediate team, our second team, beat Shamrocks in the county final, and while there was only a point in it at the end, it was probably a 4 or 5 point defeat. And when you're beaten in a county final, I know Fintan mentioned this before, it's very hard to lift the spirits in that for a provincial run. So I think if Boardsmill have their house in order there, they'd probably be favourites for that game. I'm actually going to go. I know a couple of lads playing with the Tara Rocks, so I'm going to go over to that game against Clonagale Fontenoy. I think it's in O'Toole Park at 1:00 on Saturday, so that'll be interesting as well. That was postponed last weekend, and the Maynooth Trummer game was postponed last weekend. So hopefully they'll all get played this weekend, and we'll have provincial champions this side of Christmas with a bit of luck.
Yeah, Paul Keaton says, should weaker counties wait to start their county championships to be more in line with stronger ones who go later in inter-county so they don't finish club championship too early? I suppose a lot of it is down to whether you're a dual county too, and just, the likes of Wexford and Wexford and Carlow, who obviously get one code out of the way and then go with the other. So a lot of it is kind of dependent on that too. There was obviously the sad passing away yesterday, Fintan, of Cork legend Seanie O'Leary, a man who broke plenty of hearts over the years and obviously made Cork people like yourself very, very happy indeed. How do you reflect on the legacy that he left? Because he truly is a Cork legend.
Yeah, obviously he's not someone that I kind of remember playing. Like in a hurling sense, the thing I would kind of remember more was just kind of some of the coaching stuff he kind of did in the 90s. But in terms of a name that kind of resonated, I suppose maybe it says a good bit about maybe the lack of All-Irelands Cork have had since 05, but definitely that 3 in a row team, the 76, 77, 78, those names are kind of icons within the county. He was on all 3 of them, left corner forward. He won All-Stars 2 of those years. And then 6 years later, he was still doing it again in 84. And like, to me, it's maybe the goals from that season that kind of stand out in my mind. Just the stuff that kind of, people have talked about. Obviously, it's the famous one, the Tipperary one in the Munster final in Thurles. When and also the kind of skill a lot of people kind of sharing it on social media yesterday for the flick against Offaly in the final. So obviously, I'm not trying to dig at the two of you now by bringing up these, but it kind of just showed, from everyone you talked about what he was like to play against. He was just an absolute poacher. His ability to get goals, and he obviously showcased it in both those years. But at 4 All-Ireland senior medals, 2 All-Ireland 21, 2 All-Ireland minor, it's a fair haul that he kind of finished up with. I was reading, obviously, I think people might have heard of it counted before, but obviously the story about the 77 final that Dr. Con Murphy talked about, where basically he almost broke his nose in the warm-up when a sliotar hit him in the face, and Con brought him into the dressing room afterwards, and I think there was some talk that he mightn't be able to start, and Christy Range just kind of told him, go out there, you're not going to be hurling with your nose today, Leary. And then obviously he kind of went on to coaching, which people probably mightn't have been as familiar with, but he took coaching McKilly to win 2 counties in the 90s. It was a star-studded side. He had a lot of the guys that were very, very prominent during that time for Jimmy Barry Murphy's teams, but he still was kind of able to blend them together and to win 2 counties. And then he was involved with Cork in 99 as a selector and kind of assisted Donald O'Grady as well in 2004. Obviously his son then, Tomas, would have been very well known to people, in terms of, first of all, his hurling exploits with Cork Miners, then obviously such a huge successful rugby career. But just one of those names that, like I said, just kind of resonates. Given the success he enjoyed in the 70s, bit of a cult hero thing about him when you talk to people. Maybe it is that goal scoring corner forward. The other one that kind of stands is like John Fitzgibbon seems to have that kind of a thing around Cork fans who kind of watched him around the late 80s, 90s. I'm sure your own counties you'd have someone similar. There is something about that kind of goal scoring corner forward, about the style. Like I saw someone saying last night that he wasn't the fastest man from A to B, but the thing was he really started at A. So that's people say that it was just his kind of sense of positioning and opportunism that got him into so many positions. Yeah, and obviously only 69. Just very, very sad, and a lot of people, I'd say, a lot of fond memories. When you kind of see the tributes to social media, it just seemed a lot of people who would have grown up around that time and would have been watching hurling in the 70s. He seemed to be a bit of a fan's favourite, all right, And
get your comments in if you have any particular memories of Seanie O'Leary. I think it's almost probably forgotten or underrated by probably people who are a little bit younger how much of a goal scorer he was. So Nicky Rackard obviously has 59 goals. Tony Doran has 40. I think Seamus Callan is still on 38 at the moment. And then Eddie Kerr 35, Christy Ring 33, DJ 33. And then you've next Seanie O'Leary. So he's right up there towards the very, very top. Like he's, I don't know, as well you were saying, like there's something likable about him. Was it that he was that little bit chunkier or whatever and just had a bit of dash about him? He was just great to watch, Mike.
Yeah, he was an old school poacher, Shane. You know, he was a real poacher. Like even I've seen it several times, even before his sad passing. But when Jimmy Barry throws in the pass in the centenary final in '84, Damien Martin's the Offaly goalie, and he's like it is basically the pass is overshot Seanie, and Damien Martin has read it, and he's gone to that post. He's gone over to that side to almost collect the ball. And then all of a sudden, Seanie takes a touch and touches it and almost strikes it all in one motion, kind of into an empty net. Just a class goal. I saw Tomas Mulcahy tweeted last night. He said the 1984 Munster and Centenary finals were his greatest days in Thurles. Never moved outside the 21-yard line, and look at all the goals he scored. He won us those games. Legend. Like, and he was that old school poacher that doesn't move outside there. You literally, if you're a manager, you're just saying, just stay in there. Things will happen as long as you were in there. You will make things happen. You will spook defenders. You will spook keepers. If anyone takes a mistouch, you will be there to take advantage. And yeah, he was just a poacher supreme. Absolute. Like I've watched the Centenary final several times. It's definitely not one of our better days. Definitely not. But it was definitely one of Seanie O'Leary's better days. Just a genius in around the goals.
Yeah, SSRI says Think 84 was one All-Ireland where Offaly were favourites and failed to show up. Just trying to throw that boot into you there. A reminder, we are brought to you by Micro Sports. If you want to get 10% off, use the promo code OurGame. Go on their website there for all their online products. Please do subscribe to the channel. Press that button in the bottom right-hand corner on YouTube. Follow all the other social channels too. And also a reminder, if you're looking for a Christmas present, don't look too much further than the book that's been written by Vincent O'Toole there, Flesh and Blood series, Myler, a family memoir, well worth looking into. What about these two Limerick hurlers that are going to be lining out for Kerry? Because just looking at the report there, it's that special eligibility provision for hurling next year following a derogation of the rule. You know, Davy Glennon went from Galway to Westmeath at the end of last year on the basis of his mother, Eileen. You're looking at, I think it's Jack and Padraig Ahern from Limerick Club Kaleedy. They've expressed an interest in going over. And what do you make of this, Michael?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one, Shane. It's not something I think too many people knew were going on outside of Kerry. But obviously the two lads have made overtures towards Kerry that they'd love to play for Kerry. And it's obviously the home county of their mother, and Kerry have gone to Central Council to try and get a rule temporarily amended, I suppose you would say. I actually am well aware of this rule because I played for Wicklow under that permission rule, and it was subsequently changed a couple of years later. But just that rule 610 of the GA's official guide, part 1 says a player is entitled to play for the home county of one or both of their parents and retain their own club, providing the county they are switching to is not playing in the Liam McCarthy, Joe McDonagh or Christy Ring Cups or participates in Division 1. Now, the Christy Ring was not part of that a couple of years ago. It was just Liam McCarthy or Joe McDonagh. But Kerry have obviously, like, there's not, hurlers are not plentiful in Kerry, shall we say. They're probably not of inter-county standard. So I definitely think this makes sense. It also opens up the question for other managers, and I see ML89 is in there, and he's right. Martin Dolphin from Portumna was meant to hurl for Offaly, but he wasn't allowed then all of a sudden. But Glennon was allowed to hurl at Westmeath. So not exactly sure the scenario there, but Martin Dolphin was living in Offaly, and I think one of his parents are from Offaly, but that didn't happen, obviously. But I wouldn't be a bit surprised if you start seeing other counties that are in the Christy Ring or potentially in the Joe McDonagh, as Kerry are, if there are players that want to play with them and to have either mother or father from that county. I do expect others, if Kerry have gotten a dispensation, I'd imagine there will be other county managers from other counties going to Central Council and trying to explore that avenue. Dublin's Fair City has it up again. Yeah, the Verney lad is still crying about a few Ross Gray kids. They were far from kids, according to my mother, waving red and white flags at Offaly fans coming home from the 84 final. The seeds were sown for his hatred of Tip on that fateful day. I wasn't even born, but they were sown somewhere else, obviously. It's funny how you just develop a bit of bitterness on something that someone said to you when you were younger, and you just keep that with you for the rest of your days, and that'll definitely be with me for the rest of my days. But just on those Limerick hurlers going to Kerry, I would expect to see more of this now, and I expect to see other counties looking for that rule to be temporarily put aside for their own benefit.
Yeah, Fintan, there'll be purists within the county who'll be like, look, we want lads from our own county only. But if you're a manager who's taken over the team, and I might have a year at this, I might have 2 years, I might have 3, depending on how things go, you're thinking, I need to get in the best players possible. And that if that means importing them in, I think plenty of managers will be trying to push this through. So the question is, like SSRI saying there, it shouldn't be overly exploited. Like, can you see that this thing might gather a bit of legs and more players might be switching?
Absolutely, like, it's a no-brainer to me. I mean, on the over-exploitation thing, maybe you could cap it at 3 or 5, or I'm just trying to numbers here, like, as regards for a particular season, like, but yeah, to me, it's definitely something that would be welcomed and would kind of help develop these sides. Like you mentioned the Miller book earlier, like one of the things I would have talked to John about, like he would have been obviously managed Kerry and he obviously managed Carlow. He is hugely in favour of this rule, and he would have had examples of it, and he saw the benefits of it. He got Bernard Rochford, who would have been a Cork subkeeper, to Donald Cusack into Kerry, and he also got Willie O'Dwyer. Do you remember? Willie would have been involved with the Cody panels. And I think that was due to he was based. That was to do with living and working, both of them in Kerry at the time. But like more recently for Kerry, I suppose Patrick Kelly, who was on the fringes of the Clare panel in 2013, he got involved with Kerry then, and by all accounts made a substantial difference, because one of the things that you have to look at is just the numbers game here. Like, you're looking at 8-9 senior clubs in Kerry. In Carlow, I think, has it gone down to 4 or 5 in the senior championship now? I think it was 6 or 7 a couple of years ago, but I think it's definitely gone down more. So the point he was making, I remember when I make it to be, he said it's just the biggest problem is just a depth issue. That if someone gets injured during the course of the year, which you're obviously going to, when you go further down, you might have a good 15 players, but if you just get any sort of injuries, whatever, you're going to be struggling then. And just what these guys can do for them and how they can kind of bring them up. I mean, I'm not, as you guys, the two Limerick players in question, I'm not too familiar with Paddy Ahern, but like Jack Ahern, was just double checking it. He would have played for Limerick Minor 2011, and like on that team, he would have been alongside Dan Morrissey, David Reedy, Shane Dowling, probably the kind of most recognisable name. So he obviously played at a high enough level. There's an obvious link there with his mother being from there. Like, to me, it's just an absolute no-brainer. Because of the lack of clubs in these counties, it'd be different if like there was 40 clubs in Kerry playing for a club championship. Then you should be able to. I don't think there'd be a problem with that, but I think you have to be creative and you have to give guys an outlet to play. I mean, like one of the things in Kerry that you look at Kilmiley's Dingle guys getting involved with them and playing hurling, like Matthew Flaherty would be familiar to people who would have played senior football for Kerry. His father's from 6 Mile Bridge in Clare, so even though he's from Dingle and there was never a hurling club, they used to play hurling in school, and he obviously had a kind of a love of the game through his father, obviously being from a very strong hurling area. So then he's now playing club hurling about an hour away, but that's the name of the game. And if you take that a step further at county level, I don't really see a problem with it. Just maybe on what the commenter was saying there, maybe there is something to be said capping it at a certain number per year. But yeah, to me, it's an absolute no-brainer. In terms of this dispensation, I mean, I know it was Verney be probably better to say it was Nicky Rackard, Laurie Maher, kind of mainly over the last couple of years. But definitely, I think for Christy and Joe McDonough's sides, I don't really see an issue with it, to be honest.
Just on that, Shane, it was always capped. Can't remember the number. It was either 3 or 5. It was always capped. Yeah. 5, I think. Yeah, 5, I think. And it might have even been brought down to 3. But as Fintan says there, I just think it opens the doors for other guys potentially to play county and offer something massive to another county for the guts of a decade potentially. So I have to say, I think it's a no-brainer. It's not like you're pulling somebody in, do you know what I mean? There's obvious ties. They obviously must probably live relatively close to the county as well. You're not just pulling guys in, you're not pulling ringers in or anything like that. You're getting guys that want to play for your their adopted county, chances are they are the one that are making overtures to you as well. They're coming to you to play for the county as opposed to the other way around.
Yeah, in some ways, I often think it's a shame that you could have a really strong county and then a really weak one, right? And there could be 100 plus lads who are of county quality in the strong county and who would all make that second panel. And obviously not all of them can make the strong. So in some ways it's a shame. Like I was watching a documentary recently on BT, I think Rio Ferdinand was doing it, and the huge proportion of people in the Premier League that were born in South London. Can you imagine if there was a South London team only and only a certain amount of them could play? In a way, it's a shame. And I've transferred club myself, but like, I just don't see, I would certainly not begrudge any player transferring Fintan. Like, do you get that sense? Cork's a massive county, huge amount of players. Have you ever seen any begrudgery over it?
No, I definitely can. I can understand the point you're making there. I mean, like, I think if there's a natural tie to a county, I think what the conference is making the point there. Like these Limerick guys, they're from West Limerick. That's where their club is. Like, so there's a natural kind of a link to there. They're very, very kind of close by. I mean, you look at an example like Kilkenny Carlow is always kind of the one that stood out to me. I mean, like, you've so many hurlers in Kilkenny, and look, maybe they might want to, some of these guys, like, but I mean, it's only, for some of them, it's less than a half an hour's journey. Like, if you're not quite up to the standard of the Kilkenny senior side, if you're a very good intermediate club hurler, for example, or intermediate standard county-wise hurler in the Kilkenny ranks, and maybe if you wanted to test yourself at a county senior level, maybe there should be a facility to go forward to maybe play with Carlow. I mean, I remember talking to Paul Cody a couple of years ago. I mean, like, he was just talking about the numbers game in Carlow that, like I said, I think it was gone from 6 to 4 in the Carlow Senior Hurling Championship. He was talking about their generation about Leinster players, what's going to be the story in about 10 years' time, like, in terms of Carlow. And, like, sometimes from outside it, you can look down on it, like, but it's just so, like, they're as passionate as anyone in terms of what the game means to them and what the kind of sport does. So, look, I think as long as it's, not kind of wild abuse of the rule, or there's not guys getting pulled in left, right and centre, I think if there's a valid reason for any sort of a travel or any sort of a transfer, I don't think there should be a stumbling block put in people's way for it.
You're potentially making more counties competitive, Shane, as well, which to me only helps to serve the game and make it more interesting.
Yeah, I'd agree on that one. We'll talk a bit of football now. This weekend, it's a pretty exciting weekend in Kerry, Fintan. 1936 since Cairns O'Reilly met Austin Stacks in a final. So that's an all-Tralee affair there. And then in the relegation clash also this weekend, you've got an all-Killarney clash as Legion face up to Dr. Crokes, who were All-Ireland club champions just, 4 years ago at this stage, 4.5 years ago. So, there's going to be plenty of skin and hair flying, Fintan.
Yeah, like, there's so much at stake. Like, Kerry's very interesting in terms of the kind of the rivalries within the towns and how like, obviously it's such a long-standing thing, but like a lot of big towns around the country just have the one club. But again, in the Tralee area, you have 4 clubs. In the Killarney area, in the Killarney town, you have 3, and then obviously you have a number on the outside. So that's obviously leading to these kind of rivalries developing. But it's just a very strange situation, I suppose. First of all, for Dr. Crokes coming so close to winning a county semi-final, and if they got to a final, then they wouldn't have had to face into this relegation decider, but they have that high noon showdown on Sunday in Fitzgerald Stadium. And just, when you're playing your crosstown rivals, when there's so much, kind of on the line, like, you can imagine the tension is going to increase. And then obviously I think the Kerry senior final on Sunday, I think it's really kind of got a lot of people really, really interested from a neutral point of view. I'm heading out the cover now and really looking forward to it because I just think it's going to be a brilliant occasion. I mean, obviously a lot of people would have seen the Austin Stacks fans over the last, when they won the county in 2014 and progressed into the All-Ireland Club Series in terms of their kind of marching, from, remember the semi-final they played Shockneil, they kind of got a train up to Portlaoise and then they marched en masse from Portlaoise train station to O'Moore Park. They kind of bring just great colour and great excitement to it. And I mean, like, they last won in 2014, but it's kind of, there's a lot of new players obviously in their setup, like Cairns O'Reilly's, they haven't won it since 2002. None of the current players were involved then. Some of the older fellas, David Moore and Tommy Walsh, would have been in 2008, one of the most heartbreaking county final defeats I've seen, where they were basically 2 points up in a replay in the 63rd minute. Mick Kerry just attacked all the way down the field, got an overlap going and won a penalty. And Aidan O'Shea, son of Jack O'Shea, scored the winning goal. And Jack O'Connor had actually just been appointed as Kerry manager for the second time, and he was in charge of rallies, and then that was his last game in charge, So huge amount at stake. And And just interesting, I suppose, in the sense that I think there was a lot of fear in Kerry over the last couple of years that East Kerry, the divisional side, were becoming too strong. I mean, they've won 2 county senior titles. I think they've won the last 5 or 6 minors. Obviously, David Clifford, Paulie Clifford, these are kind of the standout. But, there was kind of concern for the future of clubs, and obviously there would have been concern as well, I'd say, but, not too long ago, basically, where is Tralee football going? Is the power base shifting towards Killarney? And it's such a big thing down there between the kind of 2 towns and 2 areas. But it's definitely been kind of wrestled back towards Killarney now, towards Tralee now on Sunday with all the focus there. And the fact that the game is on in Tralee as well, it just really kind of adds to the occasion.
It actually would be some crack in Tralee over the weekend. And just reflecting on the 2 semi-finals, Michael, Austin Stacks won 2-9 to... actually, we have Stephen Poacher on here. We'll come back to that in a couple of minutes. Stephen, great of you to join us there. How are things with you?
Not too bad. The Christmas jumper on today, lads. The Christmas jumper day in school, so I don't normally dress like this on a random Thursday,
Well, it's looking well, I have to say that. We were talking about the Kerry final, but just while we have you here, I know that you can't stay on for all that long. I want to talk to you about some of the Ulster club quarterfinals this weekend. Just for those who don't know, Ramor United are against Kilcoo, Dromore against Derry Harp, Cregan against Clonairon, and the Glen of Derry against Scottstown. Which of these games is jumping out to you? I suppose as a down man and now the Mayo Bridge manager, you're probably looking at Kilcoo against Ramor United.
Listen, look, Kilcoo are battle hardened at this stage, Shane. Really, really battle hardened. A lot of experience in their team. A lot of hugely experienced campaigners. Obviously got to the All-Ireland final against Quarterfinal 2 years ago before COVID. That would have stood that group in great stead. I think they've been in 10 down finals in the last 10 years. I think winning 8 of them, that they're a phenomenal side. So Ramor obviously, probably wouldn't possess the same level of experience at this stage of the competition that Kilcoo would have. So I wouldn't see anything other than a Kilcoo in there. But certainly Glen and Scottstown would be a game, Shane, that stands out for me. Scottstown again, serious pedigree at this level. The problem in Ulster is, Shane, that for the likes of Glen there, Derry's a very, very hard championship to win. Tyrone's a very hard championship to win. Well, look, they're all hard to win, let's be honest. But I think because maybe, teams only win their first championship, particularly in Tyrone, I think there was something like 10 different winners in the last 13 years or something like 10 different clubs. And because there's that sort of spread of winners, they tend to be sort of punch drunk by the time they get to the Ulster club. And it's mission accomplished as regards winning a county title. So maybe Ulster doesn't be in those clubs' radars. But certainly the likes of Scottstown would be having one eye on the potential of possibly winning an Ulster title this year. Again, another team with serious experience. But Glen are coming in, and if there's any team that know Scottstown that well, it'll be Malachy O'Rourke and Ryan Porter. They had 6 great years at Monaghan, and obviously Malachy has proven to be a fantastic manager wherever he has gone, and another manager who has got great experience and great pedigree at this level. So for me, that's the standout game of the weekend without a question. It'll be very interesting to see who comes out of that. Clonairon and Cregan, it's a game. I see Paul Falloon from Downs refereeing that game. Paul's a great referee. Actually, probably doesn't get enough praise and credit, but Paul's one of the top officials in the country, and I know that he likes to let games flow, and it'll be hard hitting. It'll be played on the edge. And again, Clonairon, fresh new winners coming out of Armagh, but there's been a serious level of work that's gone into Clonairon at underage level over the last number of years, and they've got serious youth in their team. They've got great energy. Turbo there as well, who's coming off the bench for Armagh as well there this year. He's a great footballer. So, that game's very, very in the balance as well, and that'll be an interesting one. That would be a really, really interesting game. But yeah, Ulster's thrown up some really good ties this weekend. Some really good ties.
Yeah, and Stephen, of all the matchups I'm thinking of within games, the prospect of maybe Darren Hughes of Scottstown against Conor Glass of the Glen, that one kind of jumps out at me.
Yeah, listen, Big Glass. I remember seeing him. I actually seen him at an Ulster Colleges trial, All-Star trial about, what have we gone back now? Maybe 5-6 years ago. I took a young lad down from our school, and I remember thinking at the time, just size and the athleticism of this lad, this Glass lad, and I heard all the hype about him, and it was my first time seeing him, and he's not just give Glen a huge boost, but he's obviously give Derry a huge boost as well, and probably one of the finest young footballers in the country. Shane, you could probably well argue at the present moment in time, coming back from Australia with the professionalism that he's gained over there and the way he's looked after himself from an athletic point of view. The lad's got everything. He's got everything. I think there was a screenshot or a picture of him circulating on social media there recently of going up to fetch a ball, and it was that real, that Aussie rules type climb where you're nearly climbing on a man's back to catch the ball. One of those skills of the game that's maybe been lost recently. That really, really athletic high feeling. And listen, it's going to be an intriguing battle. But Darren Hughes is no mug either. He possesses a lot of experience, a lot of quality as well himself, and I'm sure that there'll still be a bit of fight in the old dog yet.
Yeah, there was obviously no Ulster Championship last year, so Derry Connolly happened to not win the championship, but they didn't miss out on an Ulster run. Do you think they can have an extended run again this year, or how strong are Dromore?
No, Dromore are a fine side, but a really, really good side. I know they've got Paul McIver working in the background there as well. Paul's a very shrewd coach, very experienced coach, was in with Fermanagh this year. So again, another subplot to that game, a man who worked with Fermanagh for a couple of years under Ricey, and he's obviously in there in the background of Dromore and will know Derry Connolly inside out. And that's a huge advantage, Shane. It's a huge advantage, particularly in these type of games where maybe county level is different because of the exposure that counties get. You're well au fait with who the key men are, who you want your matchups to be. Like at the county level now, the level of analysis and the level of detail and the actual exposure to videos and stuff is out there, but maybe not so much at club level. So it's always great to have that insight. But Dromore are a fine side, a fine side, and I watched them a couple of times there this year. Battle hardened to the Tyrone Championship for me is just, it's something else. Like it's ridiculous, like how competitive it is. But the beauty of the Tyrone Championship is that every single club believes they can win it. And I think in the first game, I think Dromore played Dungannon, maybe possibly. Correct me if I'm wrong, but like that game went extra time. Dromore were dead and buried at one stage, and they I think against who was it, the semi-final, Killyclar, their neighbours, Killyclar, and like they were 6 or 7 points down, and you're watching it thinking there's no way back, and then all of a sudden they just turned the screw. So look, they have a lot of experience. Colin McCullough's obviously the manager. Colin obviously played for Dromore himself, won a championship Dromore. I'm sure that Ricey, even though he's on the terrace, I'm sure he's getting a say in some capacity, or eyes in the stand in some capacity, because another experienced, shrewd campaigner to have around, and undoubtedly his time at Fermanagh will have benefited Dromore as well this weekend. So I think Dromore will have far too much for Derry Connolly, Shane.
Yeah, Michael, do you want to jump in there?
Stephen, looks like an unbelievably competitive provincial campaign on paper. Would you be siding with Kilcoo's experience to come through, or what do you think your idea of the provincial winners look like at this stage? I know it's like Mystic Meg trying to look into the future, but
yeah, no, listen, I hope Kilcoo do come through, and I know obviously because it'd be an intriguing semi-final, to see them up against a Scottstown or a Glen, because look, from our own perspective here in Down, you obviously want to see the Down clubs doing well, and in any competition, whether it's intermediate, junior or senior, you want to see the Down clubs doing well. And I hope on rate, actually I would have taught in Kilkeel for the guts of 17 years, and I think about 11 or 12 of those lads playing on Saturday in the intermediate quarterfinal are past pupils of mine, so it'd be fantastic to see them coming through as well. But come back to the Kilcoo thing, look, they're battle hardened, they have a lot of experience. Conor Lavery's obviously still playing, but he's nearly like a player coach type role there as well. It's great leadership to have on the field, and look, they'll be getting into that game with serious experience, but also as well, lads, serious confidence. They're they'll believe they can win Ulster, and that's the beauty of the Ulster Championship in general. It's like a bit like the county as well. The Ulster Provincial Championship seems to be probably the one remaining championship that's probably holding back change, because teams are so parochial and so proud, and they want to win their provincial title. So listen, it's a championship that whatever happens this weekend, nothing would surprise me. But probably, if I'm going to be, have to go out there and make a prediction, I would probably go with Kilcoo. I would probably go with Clanern. I would probably go with Dromore, and I'm just going to have a sneaky feeling that Malaga Rook's magic dust is going to work for Glen,
Stephen, just to ask you, what's your sense with Scottstown in terms of provincial finals? They're probably the most experienced part of Kilcoo. I mean, they lost in 15, I think, without extra time across with Glen. Lost very narrowly to 2018 Guidor. Has the chance passed them by slightly, or do you see them kind of coming again?
Well, look, the last thing I want to do is write any man off with his age, because age, people say age is only a number, but I know I'm feeling my age, but there's unquestionably, there's times where Scottstown, I remember actually watching one of the games, lads were, they were playing Slough-Neil, and young Bradley kicked the winner deep in injury time, but I think Rory Beggan actually had a kick to possibly win that game, if I'm correct, or it could have been the Cross-Midlane game, one of the two, but they have been close. You're right, they've been very, very close, and I'm certainly not writing them off, but they're coming up against a Glen Waddy Graham's team who, let's be honest, and I know it's only minor and I know it's only under 21, but they still have had a phenomenal success at provincial level at underage. And maybe it's just the freshness, the young legs, the energy that they have. But then this time of the year is a bit leveler because, pitches are a little bit softer, the weather's a bit heavier, the ball doesn't travel as far, and there's a whole variable factors there that at this time of the year, winter football nearly suits the old dog and the battle-hardened dog. But listen, unquestionably, and of course, Scottstown possess, possibly one of the most influential players in Ireland at the present moment in time, in Rory Beggan, because goalkeeping has become so vitally important now. It's as I said before, I wrote a wee blog about it a few months ago. It's like number 1's nearly the new number 11 now. Every kid coming through in school now. We played a challenge match against St. Coleman's yesterday, a Cornanog match, under 14 game after school, and like the St. Coleman's keeper was giving short kickouts and going again, and I joked with him at the end. I says, "Jesus," I says, "You're watching a lot of Rory Beggan." He says, "Yeah." So young lads now are all looking up to it, and it seems to be the new fad. And there's no better keeper in the country than him and Niall Morgan at performing that role. So at a club level, I seen him lads a couple of years ago playing against Burn in Park Exeter, and what he did was, when Burn got back and got set, what he did very, very well that day was he came out as a spur man. And this is 4 or 5 years ago, lads, before, the thing became really nationally fashionable. And he was coming out, presenting himself as an extra man wide. He was popping up in areas, linking play. It was nice to watch, and kicked some beautiful scores off the deck. So look, yes, unquestionably, Scottstown are definitely going to be thereabouts. But I just have a sneaky feeling with Malloy O'Rourke and Porter's knowledge of them, what they have and the momentum that Glen have. That Glen came through, lads, a mammoth battle in Donegal. That was definitely not an easy game to win. St. Eunan's, who are seriously well organised defensively, turned it into a real scrap. And that was a big test. That was a big test for a young Waddy Graham side, a big test. And they came through it. Despite missing a penalty very late in the game. So I just think a little bit of momentum. The fact that they've had a game already, I think they'll just have a wee bit too much.
Steve, just looking at your January coach education clinic, you've teamed up with Stat Sports, and you've got 3 clinics going there. One with Marty Clark on the scenario-based games training, one with Benny Coulter expanding the team's transition play, and then with Kieran McKeever tackling for success. How much joy do you get out of doing those? How well received are they?
Well, Shane, look, unquestionably, coach education for me, it's been a passion now for about 12 years. I started a coaching clinic in Kilkeel as a fundraiser back in 2009 with 57 coaches come through the door. And this year in St. Joseph's, in the 12th year of its running, I think we had the guts of nearly 450, I think just under 440 we had through the door, which probably was the largest coach education event in Ireland, in a long time. Outdoor event anyway, at least. I know the only one that probably surpassed it is the GA National Conference in Croke Park. So it's something that's given me a lot of satisfaction, a lot of pride. We've built a new strength conditioning suite in the school on the back of the funds that we raised. So this is an idea that I've had for a long time, Shane. I think that, within our own county, we probably don't have as many coach education opportunities as maybe other counties have. And I don't know the reasons for that, but this is just an opportunity for coaches locally to come on a Wednesday evening. For me, Shane, I've always said it, the greatest resource we have as coaches is each other. And, we're not experts. The lads there will claim that they will tell you straight they're not experts either. But what they have is they've got ideas, they've got experiences, they're happy to share. And coaches that come along in the evening will undoubtedly leave with a huge bag of ideas that they can bring back to their own training and stamp that sort of game or whatever it happens to be, scenario or drill or whatever, put it in their own way and deliver it in their own manner. And listen, we're delighted to have Stat Sports involved as well. It's absolutely fantastic partnership. Kieran Daly as well with DD Sports Science has come on board. It's brilliant to see that. And in the previous coaching day as well, we had a very generous sponsorship from Stephen Baxter in County Cavan as well. So to get that and to get that momentum and stuff, it's huge. It's great for the school. It's great publicity for the school. And it's brilliant for us as well. And the funds are obviously helpful, Shane. And listen, I enjoy them too because I'm learning as well. And we're all learning. We're all on the road to learning. And listen, it never stops as a coach. So it's fantastic to pick up little nuggets here and there, But thanks very much for
If you do want to place at it, go to our email, Stephen, at stevepoacher@hotmail.com. Fintan, you've done an article about how the big guns are basically an awful lot of the big guns are out of the football championship, so the All-Ireland club title is wide open.
Yeah, maybe just ask Stephen about it. Just looking at Ulster specifically, I'm just looking at the big names that lost county finals to us from the outside. If you look in, like Shockneil, Crossmaglen, and Niamh Connell, who'd be kind of big names in terms of getting provincial finals, contesting and winning them. Does it feel like a change in the guard? I mean, only Scotstown and Kilcoo of the 8 teams left have either been in a final or actually won a title. I mean, you mentioned earlier about like clubs being kind of battle hardened and sometimes maybe they're a bit white. I mean, it always kind of interests me. Tyrone is kind of the big one. It seems when teams get out of the county, it's difficult for them to progress. I mean, Dromore, I think they won 3, 07, 9 and 11. Like, do you sense that like there's a bit of a change in the guard, and do you think clubs are going to be viewing this as a big opportunity now this weekend and over the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, there's no doubt. And listen, clubs have got clubs are now, senior clubs now, lads, are very ambitious. You know, there's a huge level of optimism in all senior clubs now. They look at, I think someone penned an article there recently about how they felt that the club game was becoming more prominent than the county game. In fact, it's becoming more interesting, in fact, you know, because clubs, there's probably more clubs can possibly win their county title. There's also more clubs can win their provincial title as well. And I'll give you an example. I think timing, lads, is a huge thing. I think timing is massive. And like, for example, I'll just give you a quick example. In Carlow there last weekend, they played the Carlow champions Rathvilly. That's Brendan Murphy's club. They played the Louth champions, St. Martin's, who Jim McGuinness was in coaching with. And it was interesting because Rathvilly won their county title against Éire Óg, who were beaten in a Leinster final 2 years ago. Éire Óg were chasing 5 in a row, and I know from being down in Carlow, like, Éire Óg possess some very, very good footballers, really strong panel, nearly like a county team. Their strength and depth's that great. Like, they've lads on the bench that probably would walk into most senior clubs in Carlow. And Rathvilly won that county title in an enthralling encounter. But they won the beer for 3 days, and it was, you know, it was unquestionable. Like, it was actually really enjoyable following some of the stories on social media. Actually, I was living my life through their party. But like, it was great to see them enjoying themselves. And I texted Big Brendan on the Monday and I congratulated him. And he texted me back and says, "I just need to keep these fuckers off the beer now," he says, "because we've got a game on Sunday." So like, that's a big thing. Timing's a huge thing, lads. And like, that just happened to be, if Rathvilly had played 2 weeks before that, or maybe 3 weeks before that, or had an extra week, would that have made a difference? Because they were beaten quite comfortably. So timing is a huge thing, lads. It's unquestionable. And if you win your county title and you have 3 weeks to prepare, it's a massive thing for a group. It's a huge thing for a group. But if you win your county title and you're out the following week or the week after that, very little time to prepare. And you know yourselves, man, the emotions and the, you know, and the physical energy that takes out of you is huge, you know. So it is something, for me, timing is a big thing. And unquestionably, clubs now everywhere will be looking at the likes of, I would say, Mullinloughlin, Shane, you know, lads, I would say Mullinloughlin has probably given a lot of clubs real hard to say, look, if they can do it, why can't we do it? You know, and that's a huge thing. Whereas you're never going to get a Longford winning an All Ireland. You know, you're never going to get a Longford getting an All Ireland final. Unfortunately, no disrespect to Longford, but it's never going to happen. But their club team could, and that's the beauty of club football. That's the romance of it, and that's what I think is so attractive about club football now. And I felt that last year the inter-county game was going a bit sterile, and you know, I just feel it's become a bit of a runaway train. And you know, and I'm even looking during the week there. Liam Sheedy down with Monaghan as a performance coach and stuff, and like, there must be serious financial backing going into these things and these setups and stuff. And unless you're coming out with trophies and success and All Irelands and Ulster, like, what's really the point? You know, I don't see it. You know, so it's look, it's maybe a different argument, but I just think that the club game is where it's at the minute, lads, and I think that we're going to see some brilliant games over the next few weeks. But Shane, I'm on the bell here. I'm going to have to go because I have to go back to school.
Okay, well, look, it was brilliant to have you, Stevie, and best of luck with that coach education clinic.
Listen, thanks very much, lads. Good to chat to you, lads. Take care.
All the best.
Cheers, Steve.
So that was Stephen Poacher there. So great.
Cooling the gang on the jumper. Did you see that? Cooling the gang all over the bottom line, yeah.
And I bet you everyone who's watching online noticed it as well.
Yeah.
Always great to have Stephen Poacher on. Geez, you could have had him for another hour there if he wasn't under pressure to get back to school. We were talking about the Kerry final just before we brought Stephen on there. But I think, Michael, I was going to say to you about the semi-final. So obviously Stacks had to go to penalties and Kieran Donaghy hit the winner there. That was against St. Brendan's Board. 2-9 to 112 after extra time. Pretty dour game for long spells. And then you look at Kerins O'Reilly beating Dr. Crokes in their semi-final, 15 points to 14. This is the sort of game that, I mean, are we expecting something unbelievably close here? And obviously tense because the two teams are looking to bridge a decent enough gap since they last won it. Yeah,
no, I'd imagine you'd be expecting something fairly tight. Mightn't be a classic, but again, excitement is often generated. If it was 5-4 and it's a tight game, that's probably much better than, you know, a team winning by 10 points in an open game. So definitely would be expecting it to be tight. It's going to be tense. I'm sure everyone around Tralee is fairly tense this week. I'd say I'd say the crack around the town is unreal. And I'd say there'd be some carnival atmosphere there all weekend. It's a weekend. It's a weekend probably to be a supporter, isn't it? And to really soak in it all. Saturday night and then Sunday night, the bragging rights. The bragging rights around the town. It's outrageous. Like it's such a brilliant Christmas if you're on the winning side on Sunday, and such not a miserable Christmas, but it would definitely change your outlook. And I'd say even if COVID doesn't prevent you from going out over Christmas, and you might be avoiding a few familiar faces over Christmas, I'd say if you're on the wrong end.
Fintan, who has the more firepower? I mean, I'm just looking at the Cairns Rally team that played in the semi-final here, and you look at a forward line that has Barry John Keane, who's obviously won in All-Ireland, Tommy Walsh, who's been involved with Kerry up until recently, Jack Savage, very good player as well, and then David Moore and kind of loading the bullets from midfield. Which side do you think has more scores in it?
Oh, unquestionably, I think Cairns Rallies, and I think if you look at the scores they've been putting into the championship, I mean, they had 116 in the first round, 216 in the quarterfinal, with 15 points the last day against After Crokes. Stacks did put 14 points against South Kerry, but generally they've been kind of more low scoring. And you know, you obviously mentioned like Tommy Walsh is obviously the big name, but like Savage and Keane gone from the Kerry team with a couple of years, but like some of the points Savage kicked in the second half of the semi-final were superb. The other big addition that they've had this year is a young guy called Conor Hayes. He got 3 points in the final. He got a hat-trick in the Corny-Bree, which would be the Munster College's final a couple of years ago, like a really, really good corner forward. They also have Gavin O'Brien wing forward, is a big, massive, strong operator. He had a run with Peter Keane for one of the leagues as well. So it feels like it's kind of a battle between the Rallies kind of forwards and the Stacks defence. I mean, a lot of the Stacks defenders have played for Kerry at different levels. I mean, Dylan Casey's a very, very impressive young defender who I think has got called in by Jack O'Connor, or so is going to, I'd say, in the next couple of seasons. And in fairness, Stacks are just a really well-drilled outfit. I mean, kind of without confusing people with the system or the competition systems, but like they've won the club championship in Kerry 3 years in a row, which is a really, really good achievement. They knocked East Kerry out of it. So while they haven't been scored this year, they haven't been scoring much, they haven't been conceding much either. Obviously, everyone looks at Donaghy in terms of kind of a focal point of full forward, but that was interesting. They really needed him around midfield towards the end of the normal time against St. Brendan's to catch a couple of kickouts for them. Like they have Sean Quiller coming in off the bench. He's a very good young player. I'm kind of a bit surprised that he's kind of not starting, you know. But yeah, like it's a really kind of a fascinating game. Like the two managers, then William Harmon and Wayne Quillan, and William Harmon's from Loughmore-Castleiney. He's in charge of Rallies, and then Wayne Quillan is kind of a Stacks guy who will be in charge for a couple of years. But they're very, very good friends. They work together in Tralee IT on various coaching teams. You know, I think Harmon was saying they've been talking about having a cup of tea and meeting up for a chat, but they've kept putting it off for the last couple of weeks, and then obviously now, because they're playing the final, he said they'll probably go back another bit, you know. But like I said, I just think there's a huge amount at stake. Take away the town rivalry for a minute, just a chance to win a county, because everyone knows in Kerry the divisions are going to come back strong. I mean, you kind of got rid of East Kerry for a year, you know, but with the young talent they have coming through, and like I was trying to Barry O'Shea a couple of weeks ago for a piece. Well, he's a big kind of a Cairns Rallies man, and he was just saying how hard it is, you know, for clubs to get back. I mean, he remembers 2008, he was out injured when they were in the final, and you know, David Moore, Tommy Walsh, Barry John Keane would have all been very young at the time. And his brother Morgan just saying, like, you know, we've only lost by a point after a county final replay, and everyone around the club is saying, you know, we'll be back to more finals. He goes, it's definitely not going to work out like that. Now, they didn't think they'd be waiting 13 years maybe to get back to a final, but it just shows it's kind of at the tail end of Moore and Walsh's career they've got back to one. So, like, you park the town rivalry for a minute, I think it's just a massive chance for that group to get their first county medal. For a lot of the Stacks guys to get a first, or in Donaghy's case and a few of the more older guys, kind of a fairy tale if at 30, 38, 39 he managed to get his second. But if you're asking me to call it, I might just have a slight kind of fancy for Rallies. I think coming through that semi-final, I mean, they really had to dig deep. I mean, 5 points out at half time against Crokes. They had a defender red carded early in the second half, but the way they kind of grounded out, and just going back to a familiar theme that we've revisited the last couple of years, I just wonder, the likes of Jack Savage and Barry John Keane being with them full time, has that been a slight help this year? I mean, some of the points Savage kicked under pressure in the semi-final were absolutely superb. And I guess was just one last kind of tactical thing. It will be interesting to see, you know, if Moran gets a grip at midfield, will Stacks kind of bring Donaghy out straight away, or you know, will it be just kind of for kickouts, or what are the kind of the tactical kind of views of it then, you know? But a great game, hopefully in store, and one I'm really looking forward to.
And just to finish up on Kerry then, surely Crokes, who were Munster champions in 2018, surely they can't go down, Vincent.
It's all on the line, like, you know, there's been a lot of big clubs. I suppose this will be probably one of the biggest examples, but we have seen big clubs in different counties kind of go down. I suppose it's just a mental challenge. Like, I mean, the difficulty of losing that county semi-final when they were 5 points up and it was so close. I mean, they had a free at the very end from David Shaw to draw it and put it into a replay. They also had an overlap a few minutes before where Johnny Buckley was through, and I think it was kind of level, but David Moore produced this like it was 3-on-1, but David Moore held off, and then just managed to get a hand in at the last minute as Buckley tried to do the pass. You know, so they were so close to winning that game. On paper, they probably have the kind of more talent. I mean, you know, like Legion lost out in the quarterfinal to St. Brendan's by 8 points this year. But you just wonder, like, if it stays anywhere close in the second half, you know, if tension kind of comes into it and all that. And like, these clubs will meet each other a lot in the East Kerry Championship. You know, Legion would have won it a couple of years ago. Like, so, you would be giving Dr. Crokes the edge. But, you know, I just wonder, like, if things got kind of tight in the second half, you know, if it didn't kind of go to script, you know. Like, in a way, is there more at stake in that game, or is there more at stake in the game in Tralee, you know?
This would be the biggest relegation of all time. Surely it would be for a team that this isn't a fall from grace. Like, they were beating a point in a county semi-final and they could end up relegated. Like, show me like any other club, with due respect, would say to the likes of Portumna or the likes of Oulart, you would have said the writing was somewhat on the wall maybe in recent years when a golden generation stepped aside. The writing is not on the wall with Crokes. And I've said it to you before, Shane, a county final is a great type of pressure. I hope I never have to play in a relegation final because it is the worst type of pressure, I'd imagine. And as Fintan said, if this is a tight game, and they're obviously town rivals, if this is a tight game, all bets are off, like, going down the stretch. If this is a tight game, anything could happen with survival on the line. So yeah, to me, this is nearly a bigger game. I still think Crokes would survive, but Jesus, it would be seismic if they did go down.
That's a good point in the contrast, because like Portumna, Oulart, and say St. Vincent's in Dublin football this year, they all were either in All-Ireland finals or semi-finals around the 14 to 16 time. But over the last couple of years, there's just been kind of the signs. Not only like Crokes win the All-Ireland in 17, but they got to the final in 19. Now, I know they were well beaten in that by Quarterfinal, just produced an absolute masterclass, but like, you know, they still were Munster champions. They still got there. They were in the county final at the end of 19. You know, so it just shows, I suppose, the kind of competitive nature in Kerry. And like, I'd have to go back and look at it, like, but the way they actually got into this, I suppose, relegation mess, if you want to call it, it was very fine margins in terms of their group games against Temple Low and Kenmare. I think they lost to Kenmare in the last game by a point or something. I have to double check that. But yeah, I think probably would be in terms of the quickest turnaround from being at the top of the club game in terms of the last two in 2019 to get relegated. But having said that, I think they'll get out of it. You know, I think they'll manage to get the job done.
Yeah, Michael, here a question for you here now about Liam Sheedy joining the Monaghan footballers, and it's sort of an undefined sort of a role, sort of wide range. I'm sure it'll involve talking to players, sort of preparation for games, you know, whatever it might be to try and get them over the line. So obviously they lost the Ulster final last year by a point to the eventual All-Ireland champions, Tyrone. Like, they're a team that never seems all that far away. So you can see what they're looking for here, some sort of, especially when it's an undefined role, some sort of like marginal gains that they feel are probably there to be got. And Banty almost, you know, he's never been shy about getting big names in, whether it's going for Peter Donnelly as the S&C, Conor Laverty in the backroom team, Ray Boyne, who's obviously been involved as the stats man with All-Ireland winning teams, Tipperary and Dublin. Like, so there's no shyness on his behalf of getting big names. And I suppose that's the sort of thing that perhaps would excite and keep people within the county on board with him.
Yeah, probably will keep people energized when you see the likes of. Well, I'm not sure if Liam Sheedy, you know, a hurling connoisseur going up to Monaghan means that much to Monaghan football folk, but he obviously brings a serious pedigree with him. He was with Tipperary for 6 years combined, brought 2 All-Irelands within that time, and brought down one of the greatest hurling teams of all time, if not the greatest, when beating Kilkenny in 2010. It strikes me as a strange kind of a move for a couple of reasons. Sheedy's obviously just out of 3 years with Tipperary, having taken 9 years out. Does this mean actually that he can still be a pundit on the Sunday game? Actually, I presume he can be when it's just hurling that he'll be focusing on. But it's strange. It's it doesn't make much sense to me. There's no real link between Sheedy and Monaghan that I'm aware of. As regards Banty, kind of just, I don't know. You'd have to say what Stephen Poacher said there is very true. The finances in the background within Monaghan must be fairly massive to be able to call on the individuals that they're calling on. Obviously, Tony Buckley is from Kerry and is driving up from Kerry probably 2 to 3 nights a week minimum. There's a lot of big names there. I wonder. Part of me wonders, is it big names some for the sake of big names, or what exactly is their defined role within the setup? And then you're looking at it just goes to show you how star-studded some amount of backroom teams are now. You've obviously got Tomas O'Shea is coming in Offaly as a selector. You have plenty of other big names going in other counties.
Donaghy with Armagh.
Donaghy with the Galway Hurlers previously as well. And it's
Doug Howlett with Cork Hurlers a few years ago.
Yeah, and as you say, there within Munster hurling, there seems to be a thing, or Munster folk even going up the north as well with Donaghy and Sheedy. It's a strange one. You don't exactly know what Sheedy's role is there. It could be a very hands-off role and more of a consultancy role, and maybe it's more for guidance with regards to Banty and with regards to managing people.
You're making it sound like Ralph Rangnick now.
Yeah, I don't know much about the new United boss now, to be honest with you. Even though I saw something there the other day where there's a defined amount of seconds you're allowed on the ball in training before you have to pass up possession or something like this. All these mad kind of techniques he has, I suppose, to try and develop attack and play. But I just thought it was a very it's a strange move. I think it's strange for Sheedy to leave his native county after 3 years and then parachute himself back into the county game and in a different discipline.
What do you think, Fintan?
Yeah, I guess to the outside, I think a lot of these things are kind of strange to define and figure out what we think they're going to work on or how they are going to work. But I guess if the players get something out of it, I mean, the one relevant comparison, I suppose, is when McGeeney kind of had a similar enough role with the tip hurlers. And Seamus Callan has talked about this, he hasn't quite credited it as the overhaul in his career, but he has said that it was one kind of a factor in terms of getting to an unbelievable sustained run of excellence since, what was it, 14? That he kind of got the first of 3 or 4 All-Stars in a row, and then obviously was, captain and man of the match in the Ireland final, and, has gone on to be an absolute attacking great. I don't know, is it a case that like an individual Monaghan footballer will just have a chat with Liam Sheedy, kind of probe him for stuff about kind of excellence and kind of All-Ireland winning and all that, I find sometimes though when you talk to players, obviously they're not going to give away the trade secrets or anything like that, but they do say that they enjoy working with it's a Cork hurler with Doug Howlett or a Galway hurler with Donaghy. I mean, the Tony Buckley thing I think is a bit different because in fairness that's hands-on football coaching, or Tomas with Offaly, I imagine there's some element of that, but when it's someone from a different discipline coming in, I mean, like Dennis Levy was another. Did he have a similar kind of role to tip hurlers, or was that kind of more a defined physio? I'm not too sure.
But you could never measure if this thing is success or failure. I mean, you could end up winning the All-Ireland, but you've no idea if measuring that this was the sort of thing. And he could be brilliant with them, and all of these different guys we're talking about could be brilliant. Fintan, it can't be measured.
No, I agree not, and I think a lot of it is more maybe collectively. You can't say whether it was good, bad, or different, but I think for some individual players, I think will rave. That's just the one that I remember is just Callan talking about one interview one day about McGeeney, and he didn't really explicitly say what it was, that he had done for him, but he said it was just a chat, and he just found him a good sounding board. And I don't know, maybe it's someone from that you respect in a sporting environment. I mean, pick their brain, something completely different, something completely left field. It'll definitely grab headlines. But yeah, I do agree with you on that. And I wonder, is it going to be an individual thing? I mean, they won't say, I don't know, is Sheedy going to be addressing 35 lads in, I think it's Cloughan is the Monaghan Centre of Excellence, every night, or is it more like you can meet him on a one-to-one basis and have a chat with him and, something like that?
Yeah. Vernie, we'll talk about Kevin McManaman retiring. Obviously, a great innings with Dublin, 8 All-Irelands, I think, in 12 seasons. 2011, I saw someone tweeting yesterday, it might have been Michael McCarthy, that he felt he was Footballer of the Year in 2011, just even because of his impact from the bench. But a fair old innings, what a player he's been for Dublin at key moments.
savage innings. Like, have many players changed the course of history, the course of GA history more than he has. Like, he's changed it several times. He changed it obviously in 2011, and most people will maybe more likely talk about Cluxton's free or Kevin Nolan's point, but kind of he made them believe that the glass ceiling could be broken that year and that the 16-year famine could be ended. And then the game is in the melting pot in 2013 All-Ireland semi-final against Kerry, and he breaks down the centre after Mick McCauley passed him through a ball and fires the ball. I think he was aiming for the crossbar, floats a lovely left-footed side-foot effort into the top corner. He got a couple of goals then, or he got a goal against Mayo, didn't he, in the semi-final in 15, got some key points off the bench. Even when the 5 in a row was up in the air in 2019, he came on the field in the 70th minute. 4 minutes later, he gets a big intercept on David Moore, and the ball is worked down the field, and Dublin draw a level, and their 5 in a row dreams are still alive. I don't know if there's ever been a better impact player. I don't know if there's ever been a better impact player in sport in general. If you look at Seamus Darby, obviously was a massive impact player. It's the biggest impact of any one single goal probably in an individual game in 82. You look at maybe Teddy Sheringham, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer from a soccer point of view with their goals down throughout their Manchester United careers, but particularly in the 1999 Champions League final. But like, McMenamin just did it day in, day out. On the big occasion, he nearly always delivered. And there was nearly a buzz and an anticipation of him coming on, an anticipation that something was going to happen, that this lad is going to do something. And I did a piece for the Independent this morning, and I kind of said it. I think this is true. You knew exactly what he was going to do. You knew he was going to put his head down and he was going to charge at you, but it still didn't mean that you were able to stop him. And very few were able to stop him. And he just was always able to make things happen. I think the NBA have a 6th Player of the Year award every year, and Kevin McManaman probably would have won that in at least half the years of his intercounty career if there was a 16th Man of the Year for the GA. And I remember someone suggesting that maybe there should be, a sub award for All-Stars, because it's that big of a role now. And he's probably the one of the players that has defined that and made other managers think outside the box about the impact off the bench. But there's very few games where I remember him not doing something off the bench. He always offered something massive off the bench.
Yeah, a reminder, we're brought to you by microsport.com. If you want to get 10% off any of the online products they have there, go to microsport.com and use the promo code OurGame. Reminder also, please do subscribe to the channel on all the different platforms there, bottom right-hand corner for YouTube, and patreon.com/OurGame if you want to get the audio podcast. It's a $5 a month there. We'll talk about the Connacht Club semi-final, Tuathrastrana against Knockmore. So Tuathrastrana have won 6 in a row in Sligo. They beat Coolra Strandhill handily in the final, and then beat, I think it was St. Kieran's of London the next day out. But the last couple of Connachts they've played in, they've put up 5 points and they've put up 6 points. 2019 lost 3-7-6 against Pádraig Pearses. Lost in 2018 to Ballintubber 6 points to 5. Knockmore didn't get a chance to play this last year after obviously winning that breakthrough county title, but they have won Connacht titles in 73, 92 and 96. I don't know, Fintan, if you saw it, but their county final against Belmullet was a grinding affair. Pretty hard to watch. 196 points, I think, in the finish here. Do you think Knockmore have the quality to go on a good run here?
Yeah, I think they do, to be honest. And like the big thing, I just think, kind of revisiting a theme I was talking about earlier, is just like Connacht just strikes me as a province that is just completely wide open this year. Like, I was looking at the stats. 2004 was the last time a Connacht final didn't feature Corofin or St. Bridget's, which I just think is unbelievable in terms of two clubs' dominance. And the two of them in Castlebar have basically won every title between them since 2008. None of the three of them in it, obviously. Like, Knockmore, the only one of the 4 sides left that have won a title, and obviously none of these players were involved then. In a way, I wonder, is the scheduling actually worked out brilliantly in their favour. I mean, like what Stephen was talking earlier, they won the breakthrough county title last year, obviously celebrated that, didn't have to think about a Connacht title. Then this year they've come and backed it up, retained it. I'm sure that was a big thing for them, but celebrations are naturally just that small little bit more muted. But now I wonder, are they looking at to kind of test themselves and to kind of go forward? They're fairly battle hardened out for it as well. Like, if you look at how they won the quarterfinal against Ballintubber, Diarmuid Connor's penalty in the last minute. Obviously Kevin McLaughlin is the kind of main standout guy, but there's a good few other guys, likes of Aidan Orme, Darren McHale, Shane McHale. looked to me like very, very well drilled side. Ray Dempsey, the coach, has a good bit of experience. I wonder, is that going to be a factor as well in terms of like he, would have been involved and almost certain in those teams in 96, 97, like they got to an All-Ireland club final. I imagine he's impressing on these guys the opportunity to stake a claim now. It's interesting. I presume like they're not too far from Tour de Strand. I presume the teams, even though they're from different counties and haven't come across each other in a competitive Connacht game recently, I imagine they would have met each other in challenge matches and all that. But I understand the point you make about Tour de Strand being low scoring, but the fact that they got within a point of Ballintober a couple of years ago, Knockmore don't have the aura of Corfin, Bridges, Castlebar, because they're so inexperienced at this level. I mean, the two of you know better than I did, but at a certain stage, I wonder when you go into provincial club championships, is the fear factor there? I'm sure that at a certain stage, Byrne must have had that over teams in Leinster. After the couple of years, I'm sure Kula kind of did. You develop that reputation. I don't imagine Tour de Strand are going to be looking at Knockmore and having that kind of awe about them. And similarly, next week's game, Patrick Pearce is about Bellew. I just think, and there's a similar situation developing in Munster with Nemo and Dr. Crokes not being there and Clonmel Commercials. I think there's a lot of clubs that are just going to fancy their chances this year. I'd still be tipping Knockmore to win this game. But I imagine if Tour de Strand are going to do something, after winning, I think you said 5 or 6 in a row? If they're going to kind of push on from Sligo now and kind of do something in Connacht, you'd have to think maybe the odds are a bit more stacked in the favour, because like they're the most experienced side left in Connacht in terms of actually experience of going into provincial championships. I know Pearce has got to the final in 19, but in terms of kind of successive years of getting through to it, you'd have to think this is a great chance,
Michael, I'll ask you about the Leinster quarterfinal. So Port Arlington of Laois, they had their breakthrough win last year, but obviously didn't get to represent Leinster. Represent Laois in Leinster. So they haven't done that for a long time. Port Arlington, St. Lomans, Wolf Tones of Meath against Kilmacud Crokes, Nave Martin of Louth against Shelmaliers of Wexford, and Naas against Blessington. Any particular storylines, plot lines you're interested in there?
Yeah, probably a couple. Naas and Blessington is an interesting one. I think they're about 15 minutes apart. And a load of the Blessington lads would go to Naas CBS in school. So Kevin Quinn, who's the full forward for Blessington, he would have been on, him and a couple of his teammates would have been on the Leinster Colleges winning team with Naas CBS in 2018 and 2019, and he'll be coming up against a load of his teammates who'll be playing on the Naas side of things. So like, while that would happen you might have rival clubs within, we'll say, Newbridge with Sarsfields and Moorfield, you wouldn't normally have rival clubs actually meeting each other in a provincial campaign. So I do think it's unique. Naas CBS is an interesting one as well. Every player on the Naas panel has been through Naas CBS. So that's there's a fair bit of parochialism there. They don't go anywhere else or would not dream going anywhere else. So I think that's an interesting one. Stephen mentioned Jim McGuinness's role with Nave Martin. Obviously, Sam Mulroy is their main man. They're massively heavy favourites to beat Shelmaliers in that quarter final. Port Arlington Lomans is interesting too. For all the Westmeath success that Lomans have had, they have been unable to make that Leinster breakthrough. There was obviously that outrageous heartache against Moorfield a couple of years ago. I'm sure they'll be looking to go on a big provincial run again. Declan Kelly, who managed Offaly to the All-Ireland under-21s or under-20 success earlier this year, he's the manager. Coming up against a Port Arlington side who really swatted Port Laois aside with the minimum of fuss in that Laois final, and they're not coming in as first-time champions here. They're coming in into their first Leinster campaign after back-to-back Laois titles, so that's going to be interesting too. And obviously, like Fintan mentioned there about the amount of big hitters that aren't there, like as a result of that, like Kilmacud are probably All-Ireland favourites at this stage, even though, they hadn't won a Dublin title in a couple of years, and their last memory of being in the provincial campaign was that, heartbreaking defeat to Mullinachta. But they're, one of the very, very few big hitters left in the competition now.
But to add to that, Fintan, like Crokes didn't score for 20 minutes at our county final. Sorry, There was no score until 23 minutes. So it was later on again that they even scored in that county final against St. Jude's. Now, you would expect them to come through here. Like Wolf Tones haven't won in 15 years, and Meath only second ever title. But there's no reason that the likes of St. Lomans would think, we couldn't beat a Kilmacud Crokes team that also lost to Mullinachta a couple of years ago. I feel there's more of a sense of it being wide open rather than Crokes are going to walk through Leinster.
I suppose that probably comes from the fact that how dominant Dublin sides have been. They invariably kind of get the job done. But obviously, from the Crokes point of view, they have the past pain, I suppose, of 2018 when Lochte, they were on the other side of it, in terms of to kind of drive this side on. And don't know, is there many left from the kind of team that would won 2010? Maybe Rory O'Carroll, Craig Diaz. I think it's largely a new side. I think you're right in saying that. So you imagine that they won't kind of lack motivation. But yeah, I don't think there is the same fear factor there with a lot of clubs looking around. I mean, like in the Leinster sense, it's just Kilmacud who have won a title before, and Lomans, as Michael said, have been in the final in 17. It's a largely new experience for a lot of them. Like the Wolf Tones thing is interesting, just the record of their manager, Micheál McDermott. Like he's won 5 titles now in 5 different counties. It's an amazing record. And, took Kilmurray-Bricken to an All-Ireland final, won with Ramor United in Cavan in 2016, and now kind of won against the head largely, it seems, with Wolf Tones this year. On the basis, I suppose, I think it was a couple of years ago, the Meath champions, Dunboyne, I think it was, were at home to Kilmacud, and Kilmacud won pretty easily. You obviously have Mannion is the kind of standout name, but there's a lot of guys there with Dublin under 21, kind of Dublin O'Byrne Cup, some sort of National League, that kind of level of experience, So you imagine if they kind of have the focus right after the county semi-final. And it was very, very low scoring in the county semi-final, but maybe it is a good sign for them, the way they stuck in there. They obviously got the break with the Cian O'Connor goal when things looked to be going against them, but just the way they kind of managed to grind it out. They're probably favourites, right, to win Leinster, but it's just maybe not as clear cut. The thing that stands out for me is just the amount of big name clubs that lost county finals this year, like Portlaoise, Road, Gary Castle, and even Aero, who have been in a final a couple of years ago. Moorfield being the Kildare. It's just very interesting in terms of, you take a side like Naas coming out of Kildare for the first time, then they manage to win it. It's just something you get on a roll, don't you? And also the prize for this as well is interesting from a club player point of view. The Leinster semi-finals run in Croke Park, So if you win, I think it might have been one of the Naas players, maybe I could be wrong with that, touched on that they'd actually talked about that as a prize for getting to a Leinster semi-final. So I think that's on the Saturday night under lights, So, geez, that would be an unbelievable occasion for community, wouldn't it? If a lot of the guys haven't played there, and the whole place heading up to Croke Park the Saturday before Christmas.
Just a quick one on that, Shane. I think the Dublin champions, 11 of the last 17 have won Leinster. And what Fintan says there about the carrot of playing in Croke Park, like there's a massive carrot on one side of the draw in particular. So you have Portarlington, Lomans, Wolf Tones and Kilmacud on one side. And then you have what on paper looks, a weaker side, Nave Martine against Shelmaliers, Naas and Blessington. So one of that 4 would be in a Leinster final and playing their second game in a row in Croke Park. So the carrot there for those sides is absolutely massive.
Yeah, I have friends from Nave Martins, and never have I ever heard them being referred to as Nave Martine. I hear them getting referred to as jocks all the time, though. The jocks for Joe, because the county title is Joe, something or other. Do you know, no Meath team has won Leinster since 2002. So you're looking to bridge a serious gap there for Wolf Tones. Fintan, the GA has put in a new task force in place for the football championship reform. We obviously know about the proposals that were put in there not so long ago. So this is ahead of the upcoming annual congress in February 2022 for implementation in 2023. So the new task force features representatives of all 4 provincial councils and the GPA. The task force members include Larry McCarthy, GA President, Kieran McLaughlin from Tyrone, Jerry Ryan from Tipperary, Derek Kent, Wexford, Vincent Neary, Mayo, John Halbert, Cork, Ronan Sheehan, Down and GPA, John Joe Carroll, Kerry, Tomás O'Reen, Tom Ryan, the Director General of the GA, and Fergal McGill, the Secretary. I think Fintan might have just dropped off there briefly. But there was a tweet out from Aidan O'Rourke, Michael, and he says, as solid as this list of Gaels is, could someone not have had the foresight to include at least one member who has either played, coached or managed intercounty football? After all, the subject matter is the future shape and direction of intercounty football. Does he have a point?
Yeah, I think there's some point to that, Shane. To be honest, it's the same as any of our government who are putting different things in place about COVID now. I often wonder, do they have conversations with people on the ground and ask them what's going on? And I often wonder, with some GA decisions, do they have enough conversations with people on the ground or people that are heavily at the coalface? So I definitely think it would make sense. To be honest, someone like a Jarlath Burns, who obviously was just edged out for GA president, would be an ideal candidate here. He's heavily involved in, we'll say, the politics of the GA, and obviously heavily involved in inter-county GA throughout his career, and can obviously get feedback from his son who's involved in the Armagh panel. That's just someone off the top of my head. But I think it would make sense probably to have maybe an inter-county player or somebody just recently retired and somebody who was involved in inter-county management in recent years. I just think it's always like a lot of the names there, while unbelievable officials there, might bring a lot of the same experience to the table. And I think you always need to try and get opinions from different people. Like, how many times have you brought something to the table, Shane, with something, and you talk to someone about it, and all of a sudden they inform your opinion a little bit more and probably better the idea that you had just before that as a result of having a conversation with someone. So I definitely think he makes a very good point.
Yeah, any thoughts on it, Vincent? I know you cut out there for a second, but Aidan O'Rourke saying, maybe they should have had the foresight to include at least one member who's either played, coached, or managed at inter-county football. Yeah,
look, I think it's definitely a fair point to make. It is the kind of standard stat about the committee. It probably won't do much in terms of kind of getting players on board and kind of maybe thinking that this is actually going to bring about the change they're looking for, when they probably might feel that they kind of have the adequate representation. But just in general, I think this is going to be a bit of a tough enough sell. I think it's pretty dispiriting for a lot of people who wanted to see change. The fact that the proposals were shot down, especially Congress, there'll probably be an indication now of what's going to be different about this. And I don't know, right, if you presume you weren't following it too closely, but the provincial championship draws last week, just when you heard them kind of be made again, it's kind of hard to get really kind of enthused about it when you're kind of looking ahead to next year. I think everyone can agree that the system is broken, but trying to get people to agree on what way to go is a serious issue. I mean, Stephen mentioned earlier, I suppose Ulster is obviously by far the standout province, but when you just see games even like Cork, Kerry, Munster, Mayo, Galway, Connacht, it's really, really hard to kind of get excited about it. I think people probably be looking forward to league matches kind of more so, but just the establishment of a new task force, I'm not sure people are basically going to believe that it's going to bring about kind of the real change that they want to, even though obviously the G are trying to go about it and trying to get the wheels in motion for looking ahead to 2023 when they hope stuff will come in.
While London-based, I think someone like Kieran Deely would be ideal for something like that, Shane. He's obviously not long out inter-county game as a player. He's not long out inter-county game as a manager. He'd be very in tune with the modern players, and I think he's made several suggestions of how the fixture calendar should look, what it should look like at inter-county. So that's probably the type of people that players I know would really like to have representing them.
EH says, enjoy the show. Also, congratulations to Varney on getting engaged. We'll pray for the poor girls. So, lots of congratulations when flying in all week to you, Varney. We'll look at the Munster club. We'll just blitz through the Munster club here in football. Newcastle Wester against the Nair. I think Michael Ryan, obviously, people would remember him being over the Waterford hurling team. He's involved there. Éire Óg Ennisar against Loughmore-Castleiney. So Éire Óg won their first Clare title in 15 years, beating Kilmurray at Brechin. Apparently, they've gone more defensive, haven't conceded a goal all year. Shawnee Buckley, who used to play for Limerick as captain, he's the coach. And obviously, they have plenty of representatives who are on the Clare hurling team: Aaron Fitzgerald, David Reedy, Gavin Cooley. And then Loughmore-Castleiney, they're on, they've done the double in Tipperary, Fintan. I mean, how many times can they dig into the well? I think this is weekend, is it 18 in a row?
Yeah, this is weekend 18 now. You imagine that this is kind of is bonus territory, to use the phrase, we
don't do bonus territory in Tip.
Yeah, okay, all right. As a general rule, probably just toughen them the fact that they have to go away again. Even if it was at home.
I actually think that's refreshing, Fintan. That was one of the biggest things I thought when we were playing with Coola and going on the runs, that you were like, oh, this is fresh and interesting, and I've never got to play in this ground. That's brilliant.
Yeah, maybe there's none of that, and they're away the following week then as well, aren't they, in the far field against Ballygunner and the hurling. One of the other things about this, I know they haven't played recently, but Éire Óg do have, I was chatting to their manager during the week, they have a similar experience to Drawn with the dual thing. I mean, they got to the county hurling semi-final. 8 players who played in the football final played some part in that hurling semi-final. As well, they have a couple of players like Conal O'Hanafane is on the Clare football panel, but plays hurling with another club. I think it's Ruin is the name of the club. That's where he's from, but they don't have a football team, so he plays with Éire Óg of Ennis. So they are used to the kind of juggling act. They would usually as well have Shane O'Donnell will be in their football ranks. I think this is the first time he's ever stepped away from the senior football team, because obviously, as was detailed last weekend, he talked about his concussion difficulties, and obviously Liam Corrie is another one, might be familiar to people from the Clare hurling this year. So I think they're in that kind of similar position that they can really appreciate what Loughmore have done, and they kind of really admire it, albeit they've had maybe a couple of weeks gaps with that sort of thing. But it's just interesting in terms of, like, for both of them. You imagine it's a big thing because, like, your organisations manager was talking about, Kilmurray-Bricken have been the team to kind of dislodge for them in Clare. Commercials have probably looked at similar for Loughmore. They managed to do that. And then you're looking around Munster, and again, it's the same story as what I'm saying with Connacht. You're just not fearful of anyone, like, because, I mean, Nemo and Crokes have been the two that have kind of dominated. They've won 14 of the last 20 Munster titles between them. They're both gone. After that, then I think Commercials and Kilmurray-Bricken have 3 between them, and they're just regular contestants at it. They're experienced, but the 4 sides in the quarterfinals, and then obviously you've St. Finbarr's waiting, or Ross and Stacks or Cairns or Raleigh's, just don't invoke that same sort of kind of fear factor. So I think it's a big chance whoever wins this game in S. In terms of getting through the semi-final, you're then playing St. Finbarr's, possibly line up a Munster final after Christmas. And similar on the other side, Newcastle West and the Nair. Newcastle West have a couple of recent experiences of this. The other thing with the Nair as well, you mentioned Michael Ryan, then he's in charge of the Ballymacarbry ladies team that are playing the Munster semi-final on Sunday. So he has 2 Munster matches over the weekend. I think actually both away from home in both of them, If you ask me to call it, don't think I'm going to go against Loughmore at this stage. Anyway, I don't think it's very foolish strategy, in terms of the tipping, And I might think maybe
could be a draw.
Yeah. Maybe Newcastle West, maybe at home, but kind of very, very difficult to call that one as well,
Yeah, and I'll just run through some of the other fixtures over the weekend. Munster Intermediate Football quarterfinal. If you want to see Seamus Callanan play football, I think he's playing the sweeper role for Drummond Inch. They're up against Portlaw of Waterford. Corofin of Clare against Kildimo of Pallaskenry. Munster Junior Football, Mount Collins of Limerick against Ballina of Tipperary, and Ballyvaughan of Clare against Boherbue of Cork. In the Leinster Intermediate, Trimmer against Thomastown, who won the Kilkenny Championship last weekend, I think. Park Ratheniska are against Crossabeg, Ballymurn. St. Patrick's Donabate are against Clara, and Tang are against Kilcock. Also, just a quick word just before I let you go there, Finton. You've been very good with your time. Longford's search for a county football manager has finally ended with Laois native Billy O'Loughlin. So his noteworthy achievements were taking the Laois under-20s to a Leinster final in 2019. They lost that to Dublin. Managed Sarsfields of Kildare in 2020 and been involved in different areas with DIT at Sigerson level, including a manager. So it's just been a long time waiting because Pádraig Davis stepped down a long, long time ago, 149 days, I think, in between.
Yeah, definitely did kind of stand out. I think it was the 4th of July, I think it was when they lost to Meath quite heavily, and he kind of stepped down straight after that game. Similar to Down last week, it took a long time to kind of get someone in place. The chairman made the point that they were basically looking to get the whole management team together. So you wonder, was Billy O'Loughlin lined up a while back, and it was just getting everything in place? Because, usually sometimes with these press releases, you see the manager and then it's like backroom team to be announced later, but they had the whole thing kind of unveiled. Just interesting, the kind of array of different counties coming together to kind of help Longford football. I think they're due to announce 2 Longford-based selectors, but you mentioned Billy O'Loughlin, obviously the Laois experience, his dad was a selector with Micko. I think he's talked about that before. That was kind of part of his formative kind of football upbringing. He was involved with St. Lomans in Westmeath as a player when they got that Leinster club final a couple of years ago, and will be involved with DIT teams. And I think that's how he's kind of come into contact with some of the guys that he's got on board. Michael Hannon from Cavan as coach, Aidan Kilcoyne from Mayo as goalkeeping coach. Performance coach, sorry, I'm presuming this is Paul Brady, the handballer, in terms of, we were talking earlier, this was obviously he has so much kind of different football experience, but that's interesting that that's his role specified as opposed to the kind of football coaching side of things, and I think someone from Toronto's in the S&C, so there's definitely a different wide area of kind of outside influences that the Longford players are going to be exposed to. But it was the 30th of November, kind of making the appointment. I mean, it's mad, you're only looking at 2 months till the league starts, and then probably more relevantly for the first time it's a split season. It's only about less than 5 months until the championship starts. So teams can't really kind of waste any more time, if you think it was going to drag on any longer in terms of the search for someone.
Absolutely. And Finton, just before I let you go, just your poor old Everton getting battered again. Was it 2 points out of the last? Is it 22 points basically out of the last maybe 10 games?
It's only 1 point. I think it's 6 of the last 7. Yeah, it's been quite a grim Merseyside derby to watch last night. I'm not sure.
Would you have left after 20 minutes like some of those Everton fans did?
No, I think you'd always definitely wait till half time, wouldn't you? And like there was a bit of hope maybe then, like, you know, they kind of had their best spell then. Like, you know, I'd love to know that any of them actually try and get back in. I don't know, is that the earliest I've seen? Maybe someone would know better, but like the earliest you've seen people leave a game, like in a GA sense, you know, I don't know. Have you ever seen people leave in the first half of a match?
You'd hope not. Maybe Cork footballers against Kerry last year.
Well, no, the first half was actually good. They're actually ahead of the water break, like, you know. It was during the second. Yeah. It was during the second half, you know. But like, I don't know. To be honest, I think if you paid the ticket, like, I know some of it is a bit performative, like, you know, a few of them were they looking out for the cameras, you know, to be spotted, like, you know. But no.
All right, well, look,
ahead, lads.
Okay, well, look, Fintan, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate your input there. We'll be chatting to you again.
Lads. Cheers, Fintan.
Okay, so we're going to be doing Pick the Lock with Nisha Waldron in just a second. But a reminder, we're brought to you by microsports.com. If you want to use the promo code OurGame, you get 10% off any of their products online. Please do subscribe to the channel. Bottom right-hand corner, it's free to subscribe and it helps the channel grow. Patreon.com/OurGame. That's the place to get the audio podcast. And again, it helps support the channel. We've got Nisha Waldron on now to do Pick the Lock. Nisha, how are things?
How are you, lads? How's it going?
Not so bad. Hey, just for anyone who's unsure of this, what's going on with Pick the Lock. So it's every week we try and pick someone who we think is a guaranteed winner from this weekend, a lock of the week, if you will. And we're going to do a run and score line all the way up to Christmas to see who's best. I think my record, I had said Chelsea -1 against Man United over the weekend. Not looking too good. I think my record is now 1 wins and 3 losses from the 4 weeks we've done it. Nisha, what's yours?
Oh, I'm 3-1. I'm sitting pretty on my own on top of the mountain at 3-1. 75%.
Andrew Sullivan is on 4-0, isn't he?
Yeah, what was his pick last week? But he gets roped in with the viewers who went with Shane last week, so they're on 2-2 now. they went with Chelsea -1 against United, so he gets bunched in with all them. I can't remember what Andrew Sullivan's pick was actually.
Clock Balacalla last week.
Oh, that was it. Sorry, yeah.
And Bernie, what's your record?
2-2.
2-2, not so bad. So I'm thinking the joint out on 1 and 3.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Nisha, I was only thinking, one of the boys got on to me about funny gambling stories, and I'd kind of forgotten about this, but my probably most hilarious and most horrible gambling story was we had good information from the Dermot Wells stable years ago, and he always targeted Ballybrit in Galway, the week in Ballybrit, and we were told that he was going to have the best week in Ballybrit that he could possibly have. So we loaded up the car on the Monday down to Ballybrit, and we got word for a Barney Curly horse along the way. And we got very excited, and we lost a good bit of money, a sizable amount of money on the way. And the boys were like, will we turn back for Burr? And I was like, boys, come on, we're going to Galway. Wells going to have a bag full of winners. We'll absolutely load it up. So we went down anyway. He'd one winner. It was even money. We backed the other 5 horses, all bet. We went back, stopped in Loughrea on the way home to back another Barney Curly horse. I didn't have money, so I got one of my friends to put it on. That horse was beaten. We hadn't eaten all day. We had €7 between 4 of us. So we landed into a petrol station, got 4 big long French baguettes, a packet of ham, and a packet of Viscount biscuits, and that we sailed our way back to Burr again.
Oh, brutal! I remember one time years ago, I had a big accumulator going, and remember when Paddy Bradley retired from Derry in the middle of the season, and one of the things I said, "Geez, I'm going to bet against Derry here now." They were playing Monaghan, I think, and I had €90 on this bet, and I was only about 18 at the time, so €90 was a lot of money at that time. And all the bets came in. I was waiting on about €700 or €800 back. And right before the match, it was announced, oh, wait, Paddy Bradley is back. And I think Derry beat him in extra time. And Paddy Bradley kicked something ridiculous, like 2-14 or 2-11. Something absolutely mental. You're going, you absolute muppet. But that was one of my bigger losses now. I was sickened. Another time. You know who let me down another time, actually? The Offaly Hurlers. I had this huge bet on in college. I had €200. What it was I added them in for some reason to make the bet go up over 1,000 to beat Antrim, and they drew with them, and then hockeyed them in extra time. But the draw, it went out the window with the draw.
You've nothing now. Extra time is no good to you. You've nothing now. Pure defenseless.
I know, and I had a pick. The big one I had to make the price go up so high was Cork to beat Tip at the time when Isaki was full forward. And just, oh my God. I was saying, anyway, they were the two worst losses I ever had. Like, they were brutal.
The only thing about the loss is I don't mind as long as you knock a bit of crack out of it. Do you know what I mean? And chalk it down to experience, and it's a good old story. I don't mind, but it's it's if you're consistently losing, there's no story and there's no fun in that.
No, you're just a clown. Last week there, right? I tipped a treble or a fourfold. Sorry, for the NFL and it added up to be over 12-1, and the Eagles let us down. Oh, it was sickening. And last week we actually had a good lot of winners. Last week, the things that we spoke about and talked about, I said, like, my lock last week, Ballygunner -4. I couldn't believe they were -4. I just couldn't believe that. So I was like, right, this is going to come in. This week, some of the handicaps are pretty big in the GA betting. I was looking there, some of the ones I liked, just for now, like for this week. Thomas's I see are -2.
That's mine now. Didn't you stay a mile back
against
from that
Clarenbridge? No, I'm not thinking that. But I was thinking there about it, like -2 is a nice handicap for a team that have been around the block, been there, done it, against Clarenbridge. You know, I know they're doing really well underage and stuff, but are Clarenbridge one of them teams that are like a year away from being 2 years away, and they're just not ready yet, like, kind of a thing. And Thomas's, you know, should be really kind of, you know, basically bullying them, like, and winning this game. So you think I think that's a good one, a 10 to 11.
Just on that, what's our policy? What's our policy on if two of us end up on the same lock?
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah,
there was no ruling against that. Yeah. Why? Who are you? Shane, is that your lock? Is it?
I'm not locking anything down yet, but that I think that's an outstanding bet. I have to say, I thought it was going to be -4 or 5. I thought they'd be about 1 to 4 to win the game. To be honest with you,
it was one now I identified early. As soon as I saw it at 10 to 11, I says I'm all in on that. Look, Clarenbridge could shock us, but like that's pretty decent value at 10 to 11.
I think I got onto you, Nisha, last week saying how good of a bet that was. And he even said, I thought Ballygunner a 15-8 to win Munster before they played Ballyea was really good value. And I'd say I haven't checked it, but I'm sure they're a lot closer to even money now.
Yeah, they're getting easy against Loughmore.
No,
they'll beat Loughmore, Shane. They'll beat Loughmore and they'll cover the handicap.
I think they're on. I think Ballygunner are on a mission now. I think this is the best team.
Well, that's because you used to hurl with them, Nisha, and you're going to back them all the way.
Yeah, and the team is 10 times better now than it was then. I'm telling you, all them under 21 and minors in a row is paying off now. Like, you know, they just look such a slick outfit, I think. And then so anyway, this weekend that's next weekend. This weekend then as well, Ballyhale even money -7 against Mount Leinster Rangers. See, so this is the thing with Mount Leinster Rangers, right? Similar situation to the Raps, right, against Clough-Ballacolla. Like, it's been ages since they played a county final, and I was at the Kilkenny county final there, obviously, and it mightn't have shown up on the telly, but there's no way Mount Leinster Rangers could be covering or, you know, replicating that intensity and baiting and sledging that was going on. It was, if you were down on the sideline watching it, lads boxing each other, breaking hurls at each other, thumping each other. Like, you know, Mount Leinster Rangers haven't pucked the ball in anger since, you know, middle of September, right? Very hard to get revved up again, come back out in the Leinster Championship in the freezing cold winter, and, you know, be ready. And I know that boys from the Shamrocks from Ballyhale and all, TJ Sweden and TJ Stagg and all, loads were involved in that, but there was a round of under 21 as well. So no, I think even though it is a big gap, 7 points, but I just think coming in cold to try and take on the Shamrocks now, I think it's going to be way too hard.
Nisha, you played in that Coola St. Mullins game a couple of years ago, the day that we were beaten. Do you find that pitch is not really a high-scoring pitch? Because, you know, once you get into the depth of winter, like most club pitches, it's slow enough. So maybe is that something that would make it more difficult for Ballygunner or Ballyhale to beat the handicap? Yeah,
you would think so. I don't know what it is with Carlow as well. It's just any time I've been playing down there and stuff for team, it's such a hard. It's hard to play in. It's just a tough place to go, a tough place to play in. You know, one of these kind of things. But I still think just Ballyhale are further down the road, and they're only 3 weeks off the county final or whatever it is now. And, you know, Mount Leinster Rangers are nearly 3 months off the county final. So it's just, I think, you know, if you're going to mix it, Ballyhale can mix it, and if you want to hurl, Ballyhurl or the Shamrocks can hurl. So I think they should be probably looking to cover that -7.
You're looking to lock this in?
I'm not fully decided yet. And then the Kilmacud Crokes in the football, right? They're -6 and they're evens as well. Do you think they'd be covering that? 6 is big in football.
I think
Fair
6 is
wish, no.
massive in football. I think they're away as well, aren't they, to Wolf Tones?
I actually don't know. Not 100%
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
pretty sure
yeah.
they are. Like, so
They are. Yeah, sorry, they are.
I wouldn't be going for -6 there. They didn't score for coming up to a half an hour for their county final. So
Speaking of
entirely
+6 and -6, Shelmaliers are playing away to the Loud champions, who obviously have Sam Mulroy in the Leinster quarter-final. And St. Martin's, they're 1-10 to win the game. Shelmaliers are 13-2 straight, +6 even money. Is there something I don't know about, or that either you know about, why there's that price is so distorted?
I don't know. That seems. What's the? Did you say the handicap there? Or do you know that?
It's +6 for Shelmaliers. It seems huge. They're not a bad side. They won the Wexford Hurling Championship last year. Won Wexford football a couple of years ago as well. No, they have Brian Malone, Glenn Malone. Like they're not a bad side now. Loud and Wexford both have horrible records in the provincial championship and have never. I think they're the only two counties that have never won in Leinster. But that price seems a bit distorted. The other one I have to say is, like, I thought Loughmore would be 50-50 game between them and Aero Guinness, and Loughmore 13-8 to win that game. +1, 11-10, which is not bad now either, I have to say.
The thing is, like, it's a 1 o'clock throw-in for the Shelmaliers game against Nave Martin. It's a 2.5 hour drive up. So maybe that's something that'll count against them. You wouldn't be entirely sure, but yeah, it definitely seems +6 for any team in Gaelic football. +6 at the moment. I think it's going to be hard done in this weather.
So if anyone wants to, right, as an outside bet for the weekend, right, I love throwing out these. If you throw in Ballyhale Shamrocks, Thomas's, and Kilmacud Crokes to cover, it's over 6.5 to 1.
Nice.
But again, who is it? Ballyhale.
So Ballyhale Shamrocks -7, Thomas is -2, and then Crokes -6. See, this is the thing. The 6 is big, I think. Yeah, but it's over 6.5 to 1. You see, that's the thing. Tempting.
It's money down the pan, is what that is.
Yeah, but so is
you could be 1,000 to 1 and still be throwing away money.
You know what you should have done with that tenner?
So I'm going to go straight in. I'm going to lock it in. St. Thomas is -2, 10-11. No big deal. That's me. Nice. I'm going to be back on 2 and 3. So
I tell you what, Shano, you can put the double lock on that, because I never thought I'd say it, but I'll follow you in. I'll follow you into the breach lock there. No bother at all. Without that, I think that's outstanding value, I have to say. Outstanding value.
The combination lock by, we'll call it.
And all the viewers out there, get your comments in, because obviously we'll have that viewers poll where, based on the comments that you put in, we'll have a list of 4 different bets that we'll put in a poll on at OurGame HQ on Twitter. You vote, and that'll be the viewers cast for next week. So over to you, Nisha.
The Kerry County final as well in the football, right? Austin Stacks -1, so 1 is the handicap, right? But they're 13-8 to cover -1, which I thought was kind of a big price for a handicap. They're usually like evens or 10-11, 11-10. I thought, not that I know much about the Kerry Football Championship, being honest, but again, 13-8 for just to win the game by 2 points. Like, I just thought that was a bigger than usual price to cover your spread. But I'm going to stick into the GA as well. I'm going to stick with hurling. I went with hurling last week, and I have a good feeling about this one. I'm going to lock in the Ballyhale Shamrocks -7 against Mount Leinster Rangers. Look, I'm just going for it. Right, I'm 3-1. Follow me or not, doesn't matter. I'm on 75%. I'll survive another week and hopefully get to maybe 4. I'll still have a winning record even if this doesn't come in. I don't care. Yeah, I'm going Ballyhale Shamrocks -7. I could see, then again, the bookies, like you said, the first time, Verney, they seem to get it bang on, but I just think that gap of playing is just too long. It'd be like coming in to a new season playing against a team who are getting ready for the All-Ireland semi-final or something, it's just, I think it's too big of a gap. Well,
Nisha, do you remember a couple of years ago when St. Mullins played Ballyhale? And obviously they had beaten us, and I think they'd beaten, was it Rathdowney Earl as well? So they were obviously on the top of the sod, flying as sharp as could be. But when they came up against Ballygunner or Ballyhale, and I think they lost by maybe 7, it was just the sharpness of the Ballyhale hurling that made all the difference. Like Mullins would win a ruck, but they wouldn't get the ball away quickly, and then it would be gone, taken from by Ballyhale, who were obviously such sharp hurlers. And because they haven't played since September the 19th, that obviously they're going to be under the gun anyway against Ballyhale. And now, is their sharpness at the same level? Can it be? I just don't think it can be if you haven't played competitively in that long.
No, and I just think that gap it's just too big of a handicap. Like you see, even again, like you're saying, the Ballycollen, the Raps, like it's too big of a handicap that you haven't played in so long. Like and Shamrocks battle hard, and we all know county champions coming out. Let's just go for it.
I'd really be following that game in running now, Nisha, because it's the sort of thing where they could throw everything at them for a half. And then you could just go, just say there's just play Ballyhale or a point or two up at half time. Then you go -5, -6 at half time, and they pull away with 10 or 15 minutes to go. Do you know what I mean? If that's so, I'd keep an eye on the game as it's going.
Nisha,
losing the legs.
What else did you want to touch on before we finish up? Does any
other? So the soccer. So City, right? City are -2 against Watford, right? But remember what happened when we spoke of Watford and the other Manchester team. Are Watford going to continue their domination in Manchester? I doubt it. So City 13-8 -2, and Liverpool -1 against Wolves is 11-10. Now I checked the alternative handicap in this, right? Because look, Liverpool are good, Wolves aren't.
Wolves are good. They're in 6th.
Yeah, right. All right. Fair enough. Right. So -2 anyway, or 3-1 if you're brave enough to do it. And God be with the days, boy. I remember when I was younger and you could back Barcelona -2 every weekend and Messi to score, and you'd just be going, yeah, great, look, there you go. Happy days. There's an extra €50 for the week in college. So yeah, look, try it out maybe. I just thought that was a big price, 3-1, because you could see, look, the 3 boys Liverpool have up front could get a goal each. Like you can see them beating 3-0. Like, I think. I'm a big soccer expert, obviously. And then in the NFL, well, go on, Shane. You were going to say something?
I was just going to say, I actually would be on board with you on Man City getting -2 against Watford, because I know Watford beat the snot out of Man United, but they're in 17th. They're not all that good. They've lost 4 of the last 5, and the United one being their only win. So I'd go -2 with City.
They de-wheeled poor old Ole. The minus in the football is a dodgy game. Yeah, I'd agree with Owen. It is dodgy. I think that 6 is just a little bit too big. Yeah. Now, could be totally wrong. Now, the Crokes could come out flying. Sometimes it's harder to win in your county, and next thing all of a sudden your shackles are off, and as they say, and you're blitzing teams because you could be at a far superior fitness level, and you could end up taking over the game, and all the pressure will be up the other side of the field, and you never know. Wolves' phones could be trying to sit back, the legs go, and Crokes get 2 goals, and it's like we'll see. But then in the NFL, right? So this is when this week is always a really interesting week in the NFL. It's the week after Thanksgiving, right? So the handicaps are still in a spot that you would think this is basically right when the teams start kind of separating themselves, right? Because as Bill Parcells, soccer, yeah.
Drive on with the NFL.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. So where teams start separating themselves, as Bill Parcells famously says, and Bill Belichick is a disciple of his as well. The season starts after Thanksgiving, as they say, right? And the Patriots are actually involved in probably the game of the week against the Bills, but that's not till Monday night, and that'll be a huge game. And the spread there is 2.5 in favour of the Bills. I actually like the Patriots to win that game.
The Pats are 6-5 to win.
Yeah, I actually like the Patriots to win the game. But anyway, I don't think I'll be putting money on it, but just these are a couple of things that stood out. And then Colts -9 against the Texans, Cardinals -7.5 versus the Bears, the Bengals -3 against the Chargers. That could be the one. Dolphins -4.5 against the Giants. Dolphins are on a roll. Giants, I know, upset us last week, but the Eagles were absolutely brutal. The Dolphins are better than the Eagles, right? The Eagles, they're the funniest little team ever, where they're the only team where you'd be nearly saying, don't let the quarterback throw the ball, make him run, right? Far better at running, and if he had just kept running, they probably would have won by about 20 points, and we'd have been laughing here this week with our over 12-1 bet coming in. But anyway, the Eagles, now, they let us down, but they're -6.5 against the Jets, so they just have to win by a touchdown against the Jets. The Jets are absolutely cat-malogin, right? They're brutal. Eagles should be covering 6.5. Washington football team versus the Las Vegas Raiders. The spread there is 2.5 in favour of the Raiders, which I thought was surprising. Again, Washington are still in with a chance to win their division and get to the playoffs. So plus 2.5 could be the bet there. And then 49ers against the sucky Seahawks are minus 3.5. I like that one. Seahawks are absolutely falling apart at the seams. And then the 49ers at the start of the year, they were going terribly and now are going the other way. They're on an upward curve, and you would think, I know it's a divisional game, it's a big clash and all that, but the Seahawks are so bad. DK Metcalf seems to be having some kind of a row with Russell Wilson. He won't pass him the ball, which is so odd. And then DK Metcalf seemed to have pulled himself out of the game the other day as well. So very odd stuff going on. I don't think Russell Wilson has fully recovered from his deadly finger and all his imaginary passing games and stuff before the games. God, that was
cruel.
Like a great player and all that, like, but oh my God. And to be honest, look, being a Packers fan, I love to see the Seahawks being brutal. They've broken my heart a couple of times. Packers are on a bye week. So anyway, look, they're the bets I like. And if you're following and betting individually, right, I on the stuff that we've spoken about, I think we have something like a 90% record against the spread in the NFL games, to be honest. We're only missing out on maybe 1 or 2 every week. So, and now I'm not picking every game because it's too hard to do that. There's just always a bunch of about 6 to 7 that you should kind of narrow in on. And them ones that I spoke about there, I think are the best value ones, because again, this is the week where everyone will start taking a jump. It's like the jump, you know, being a former primary school teacher, it's like the jump from 4th class to 5th class. Some lads get left behind and some lads fly up to the top. Well, all of a sudden you're doing long division in maths. Some lads get it, some lads don't, I'm afraid. So this is that week.
Nisha, just lastly there, Andrew Sullivan's lock of the week is the Dolphins minus 4.5 against the Giants.
There you go. Nice. There you go. That's a good pick. I like that pick. I like the way they're going. I have Jalen Waddle on my fantasy team. I picked him up rather slyly, and he's absolutely flying it for me. Another game I didn't really look at is the Buccaneers against the Falcons, right? I think the Buccaneers are due to absolutely blitz somebody, and I think it could be the Falcons this weekend. So keep an eye on that one. I don't know what the spread is, but keep an eye as well between now and Sunday, because the lines tend to jump a lot. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have for the NFL this weekend, boys. But yeah, Ballyhale -7. Ballyhale Shamrocks. I think we're going to do it. TJ is going to start off a new month. I saw him posting on his Instagram going on, he'll never forget November. Well, TJ, put the ball over the barn in the back of the net, and I'll never forget you in December. Yeah.
So that's it. Get your comments in. Let us know who you want us to put in the Twitter poll so the viewers can pick their lock of the week. St. Thomas is -2 for myself and Bernie. Ballyhale -7 for Nisha. We've had a very packed show. We had Paul Flaherty of What's the Score on. We had Vincent O'Toole of the 42. We had Stephen Poacher on as well. We've had some amount of stuff. So look, we'll be chatting to you again soon. Thanks, lads.
Cheers,
man. Sound.